Chapter 501. Lu Lanhua was taken aback. To Lu Lanhua, her ex-daughter-in-law was a weak and incompetent person who could be used as a money-making tool. Other than that, she was useless. Qin Yuru was easy to bully. She had been weak and meek all her life. When she was living with Yun Gang, she had the final say. Therefore, even after Qin Yuru and Yun Gang got divorced, Lu Lanhua still dared to shamelessly ask for money. Moreover, it was the kind that had no conscience. Lu Lanhua had been short of money recently. Lu Lanhua had always been afraid of her husband, Yun Zhong. Coincidentally, Yun Zhong had taken a car alone to visit his friend today. Using this opportunity and the fact that she was short of money recently, Lu Lanhua came to Qin Yuru to ask for money. Lu Lanhua's own son, Yun Gang, was not born to be a moneymaker. After Qin Yuru left, Lu Lanhua's source of income was cut off. How could an unfilial son like Yun Gang bring money home? Therefore, when Lu Lanhua ran out of money, the first person she thought of was Qin Yuru. Moreover, the news about Lu Fian's family had been spreading like wildfire recently. Qin Yuru had even given Lu Fian's family a sum of money. She had so much money, but instead of giving it to her, she gave it to someone else. When Lu Lanhua first heard this news, she was furious. Therefore, Lu Lanhua did not say anything and took the opportunity to go to Qin Yuru's place. However, she did not expect that Qin Yuru, who had always been obedient in front of her, would also be furious. In her anger, she directly asked her to leave. Lu Lanhua shouted a few "us," but each word was weaker than the last. She really didn't care about it, especially when she heard Qin Yuru say that Yun Jian and Yun Yi were with Qin Yuru. If Yun Gang did not give them living expenses, they could appeal to the higher-ups. Lu Lanhua panicked. She was really afraid that Qin Yuru would sue and ask her family to use the money to support Yun Jian and Yun Yi. Asking her to take the money was worse than asking for Lu Lanhua's life. When Yun Jian saw that Qin Yuru was resisting so fiercely, she smiled. She knew that even if she didn't do anything, her mother would be able to handle this matter. Thus, Yun Jian reached out and grabbed Si Yi's hand. Before Qin Yuru and the others realized that she and Si had returned, she pulled Si Yi to the side and hid. "Let's not make a sound. Let's climb up the roof and take a look," Yun Jian said softly to Si. As she spoke, Yun Jian pulled Si to a small house near Zhang Meihua's house. Zhang Meihua's house was surrounded by low houses. Zhang Meihua's house was also a low house. Nowadays, there were very few people who built their houses to be 3 or 4 stories high. When Yun Jian and Si arrived at the nearby low house, she gestured for Si to nimbly climb up the roof from the low house's sink. The two of them were very skillful. In no time, they had nimbly climbed up the roof. Si expressed that he had never done such a wretched thing in his life, climbing up other people's roofs. However, he had never rejected Yun Jian's words. Coincidentally, this low house allowed them to see and hear the conversation and actions of Qin Yuru and the others. "Please leave." Qin Yuru's attitude was resolute. She pointed at the door and shouted at Lu Lanhua. "Good for you. You've really grown up. You've forgotten how well I treated you in the past." Lu Lanhua spat out the word "you" after a long time. She was lying through her teeth. Chapter 502. Lu Lanhua had just taken 2 steps out of the courtyard when Yun Jian, who was lying on the roof, did not bother to hide her tracks. She flipped her hand and a stone appeared in her palm. Before she went up the roof, she had brought a stone with her. This was the perfect time to use it. Yun Jian pursed her lips. At the same time, the stone in her hand flew towards Lu Lanhua, who was about to leave. Lu Lanhua's raised but swayed left and right as she left arrogantly. Suddenly, a stone hit the acupuncture point on Lu Lanhua's thigh at the speed of light. Lu Lanhua's knees gave way instantly. Moreover, she was still maintaining her arrogant posture and did not pay attention to her feet. By the time Lu Lanhua's knees went soft, it was already too late for her to stabilize her feet. Coincidentally, the wind had been chilly last night and it had drizzled on New Year's Eve. Right now, the courtyard was filled with puddles of water. Lu Lanhua's legs went soft, and she fell forward with her chest facing down. Right in front of her was the puddle of muddy water that had accumulated the most water in the courtyard. Ah! Lu Lanhua screamed in panic the moment she fell. However, she could not steady herself and fell into the puddle of water. With Lu Lanhua's fall, the cement in the puddle splashed up before falling back to the ground. In the end, the cement stained Lu Lanhua's new clothes. Lu Lanhua got up almost at the same time. However, when she saw that her new clothes were stained with water, Lu Lanhua screamed, "Clothes! My new clothes!" Today was the first day of the new year. That was why Lu Lanhua was willing to wear the new clothes that she had bought with gritted teeth. However, at this moment, the bright red and green clothes were stained with muddy water. If one were to ask Lu Lanhua how she felt at this moment, she would definitely be extremely upset. At first glance, people would think that Lu Lanhua had fallen down herself. However, Gu Junjian had noticed Yun Jian's undisguised attack just now. No matter what, Gu Junjian was the leader of the advanced special forces. He held a high position and had been in the special forces for so many years. If he didn't even have this much insight, how could he manage the entire advanced special forces? Following the path, Gu Junjian spotted Yun Jian and Ce hiding under a nearby roof. He was dumbfounded. He saw that Yun Jian was putting her index finger to her lips, indicating for him not to make a sound. Gu Junjian understood. He was not the kind of person who would be fair like Mother Mary, so he did not say anything. "You fell on your own. You can't blame us." Qin Yiru knew what kind of person Lu Lanhua was, so she spoke first. Having lived with people like Lu Lanhua for more than 10 years, Qin Yiru obviously understood Lu Lanhua's character. If she did not say this, Lu Lanhua would probably stand up and point at her nose again, saying that it was Qin Yiru's fault that she had fallen just now. Lu Lanhua would even twist the truth and say that she had fallen because Qin Yiru did not fill up the puddle in the yard. Yun Jian, who was hiding in the distance, smiled. She saw that Lu Lanhua was finally driven away by her own mother and smiled knowingly. At least Qin Yiru had learned how to retaliate now. Hiding on the roof, Yun Jian watched as Gu Junjian accompanied Qin Yiru, who was still angry, into the house. She was about to tell Ce that they should go back too when a little boy's voice came from behind. "Mommy, why did brother and sister climb so high?" A little boy pointed at Yun Jian and Ce and asked curiously. Chapter 503. Ce's face darkened when he heard the little boy's mother's voice behind him. Then, the little boy's mother ran away as if she was avoiding the plague. Yun Jian's mouth twitched slightly. She leaned against the roof and tilted her head to look at Ce with a slight smile on her face. It was hard to imagine Ce being called a fool. Now that she saw it, it was indeed fun. "Wait." Ce stood on the side and looked at Yun Jian's smirk. He studied her from head to toe and even moved his gaze down to stare at her plump breasts before he spoke in a magnetic tone. The few glances made Yun Jian shudder. It was the feeling of being stared at to the point of uneasiness. "I'm going home." Yun Jian pursed her lips and stood up. In the next second, she stood straight on the roof. The roof wasn't very high. It was only about 2 to 3 meters high. However, if a normal person jumped down from such a high roof, they wouldn't die, but they would at least suffer fractures. She leaped down from the back of the roof. Her jump was as light as if she were standing on flat ground, jumping up and then landing back down. After doing half a somersault in the air, Yun Jian landed steadily. She jumped down from the back door of the house because Lu Lanhua was passing by the front door. If she jumped down from the front door, she would directly collide with Lu Lanhua. Behind the house, there was an old man sitting with his legs crossed and humming a song leisurely while holding a hand warmer. This old man sat under the roof tiles of the house. Suddenly, he saw a slender figure jump down from above. The old man was so frightened that his heart tightened. When he saw Yun Jian clearly, the old man suddenly shouted in fright, "Oh my God, young lady, could you have said hello before you came down?" You scared this old man. Just as the old man said this, he saw another slender figure jump down from above him. This time, the old man was so frightened that he directly threw the hand warmer on the ground with a plop sound. "Oh my God, what the hell?" Another one came down. "You two are hiding on my roof? What did you do?" The old man stared blankly at Yun Jian and Ce, who had just come down. "We're going to do something special," Ce walked over and put her arm around Yun Jian's shoulder. They walked around the house and headed towards Zhang Meiwa's house. The old grandpa stood rooted to the ground and wanted to cry. Clearly, he had misunderstood something. Yun Jian and Ce had just returned to Zhang Meiwa's house. When they opened the door, they saw Gu Junjian resting his hands on Qin Yiru's shoulders. He seemed to be comforting her. When the door was suddenly opened, Gu Junjian was shocked. He quickly withdrew his hand from Qin Yiru's shoulder. Yun Jian suddenly smiled awkwardly. She had come back at the wrong time. At this moment, Xiao Yunju's mumbling voice came from the stairs. "Big sister, big brother Ce, I want a hug too. I want a hug like Uncle Gu and Mama Qin." Xiao Yunju had just woken up from his afternoon nap. His hazy little face looked rosy and seductive. Qin Yiru treated Xiao Yunju as her own son. Xiao Yunju also called Qin Yiru Mama Qin. The reason why she added the word Qin was because Qin Yiru felt that Xiao Yunju had his own biological mother. In spite of it, Yunju's words seemed to have pointed out something incredible. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and glanced sideways. She happened to see Gu Yunjian's old face turn red. Chapter 504. Even Qin Yiru, whose face had turned ugly because of Lu Lanhua's antics, instantly came back to her senses. Her radiant face immediately had a tinge of redness. Because her work was going smoothly and her children were filial, Qin Yiru was now not under much pressure. In just a few short months, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Even the wrinkles on her face had disappeared without a trace. Qin Yiru looked 10 years younger than before. In addition, Qin Yiru was good-looking to begin with. She had overworked herself previously, so she looked like an old woman in her 50s or 60s despite being in her 40s. Now that the pressure had lessened, her delicate features began to show up again. Therefore, it was not difficult to see that Yun Jian's delicate and beautiful appearance was inherited from Qin Yiru's genes. Otherwise, her brother Yun Yi and the original owner of the body, Yun Jian, would not have such stunning looks. "Xiao Zhu, don't talk nonsense." Qin Yiru's face was full of shyness, especially after being exposed in front of Ce and Yun Jian. Although there was indeed something going on between her and Gu Junjian, it was normal for a person to be shy when faced with this kind of situation. "Mrs. Qin, Xiao Zhu is not talking nonsense." Xiao Yunju stood at the top of the stairs on the second floor. His sleepiness had gradually dissipated. His small eyes rolled around as he looked at Qin Yiru and pouted. Qin Yiru usually spoiled Xiao Yunju, so Xiao Yunju did not hold back when he said that. Qin Yiru originally wanted to signal Xiao Yunju to change his words, but Xiao Yunju was still young. He did not realize how intimate his words were. Qin Yiru's face instantly turned red. She looked like she was in love with him. Gu Junjian stood to the side and watched. He originally wanted to clarify his words, but he suddenly stopped. Just as Qin Yiru and Xiao Yunju were talking, Ce had already arrived in front of Xiao Yunju. He squatted down and gently picked up Xiao Yunju. His seductive lips curled up slightly. Ahem. Yun Jian suddenly coughed softly. Her beautiful eyes looked down at the ground. Suddenly she smiled and said, "Mom, we'll go upstairs first." In this situation, she was embarrassed to stay here any longer. "Okay." Qin Yiru's face was still a little red, but she nodded. Yun Jian then ran upstairs and pushed Xiao Yunju and Ce. She pushed and pushed her way to the second floor. At this time, only Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian were downstairs. Qin Yiru then said, "Officer Gu, thank you for just now." The children almost misunderstood. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to apologize. I was the one who suddenly hugged you. I should be the one apologizing," Gu Junjian said to Qin Yiru. Then, the two of them fell silent. When Qin Yiru returned to her room after chasing Lu Lanhua away, her tears fell. No one could understand the pain she had suffered for so many years. For some reason, when Gu Junjian looked at Qin Yiru, it was as if he was looking at his deceased mother. His deceased father had cheated on her. When his mother was alive, she washed her face with tears every day. Gu Junjian's heart tightened. When he came back to his senses, he had already taken the initiative to hug Qin Yiru. Even he did not expect that to happen. Therefore, Gu Junjian was stunned. Coincidentally, Xiao Yunju woke up at this time. He stood at the top of the stairs and saw the scene just now. Chapter 505. While Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian were still staring at each other downstairs, Yun Jian, who had escaped to the second floor, pushed Si and Xiao Yunju into the room she was temporarily staying in. It was only when they were hiding in the room that Yun Jian took a deep breath. She did not think that it was inappropriate for Gu Junjian to stay in the beginning. After all, Gu Junjian had come from Longmen City and it was a little late last night. Since he was staying, so be it. However, from the situation just now, she could see the difference no matter how dumb she was. Qin Yiru's bitterness and Gu Junjian's reaction. Yun Jian was sure that Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian were not what Qin Yiru wanted to clarify. Since Qin Yiru and Yun Gang's divorce, Qin Yiru's life had been smoother. This was what Yun Jian was glad about. What about when Qin Yiru grew old? Would she be alone for the rest of her life? Yun Jian had actually thought about letting Qin Yiru find a partner. However, it was not easy to find one just because one wanted to. To prevent Qin Yiru from meeting someone like Yun Gang again, Yun Jian had not mentioned it. However, if Qin Yiru's partner was Gu Junjian, Yun Jian would agree wholeheartedly. Although Gu Junjian held a high position, he was an upright person. At the same time, it could be seen that he took good care of the candidates for the advanced special forces. All in all, he was protective of his own people. Of course, if Gu Junjian was married, Yun Jian would not agree. After all, if his legal wife was still around, would Qin Yiru not become a mistress with Gu Junjian? It was not so easy to be a mistress. A mistress was an existence that everyone loathed. Therefore, if Gu Junjian was married, Yun Jian would be the first to object. Standing in her temporary residence, Yun Jian rested her chin on her hand as her beautiful eyes stared at a spot on the floor. Her high ponytail reflected her spirited attitude. She was spirited yet beautiful, making Si Yi's heart itch. If he was not carrying Xiao Yunju, he would definitely bite her alluring lips right now. Xiao Yunju was impatient, waving his tiny hands in front of Yun Jian for a while as he called out anxiously, "Jie jie, jie." Yunju's last shout drew Yun Jian's attention back to him. What's wrong? Yun Jian looked up at Xiao Yunju. Jie jie, Xiao Zhu wants a hug from Jie jie. Xiao Yunju smiled mischievously as he stretched out his hands, waiting for Yun Jian to hug him. Yun Jian casually took Xiao Yunju from Si Yi's arms. After staying in the room for an entire afternoon, Yun Jian and Si only brought Xiao Yunju downstairs when it was time for dinner. Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian had returned to normal. The two of them chatted with each other and were very congenial. It was as if the awkward situation just now had never happened. It had to be said that Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian always had endless things to talk about. At that moment, seeing Yun Jian and Si Yi bringing Xiao Yunju downstairs, Gu Junjian quickly waved at Yun Jian. Although Yun Jian did not understand, she passed Xiao Yunju's tiny hand to Si Yi and walked toward Gu Junjian. Yun Jian, I just received a notice from the higher-ups. On the 10th day of the new year, all members of Team Monarch must gather in the military because there's a new batch of Special Forces candidates in the military. They're the same age as all of you, but they're very strong. Chapter 506. Considering the limited number of Advanced Special Forces members, if they win the PK this time, you'll have to give up your current Advanced Special Forces position to them. This is the higher-ups arrangement, there's nothing I can do about it. But Yun Jian, I believe you can do it. Gu Junjian finished his speech rather seriously. He had just received this news through a text message on his phone. Gu Junjian's eyelids twitched when he first read the notification from his higher-ups. Gu Junjian was not the only captain of the Advanced Special Forces. With how big country Z was, naturally, Gu Junjian was not the only captain of the Advanced Special Forces. The other group consisted of Advanced Special Forces candidates taught by a military officer who was Gu Junjian's enemy. They were around the same age as Yun Jian and the rest. However, recently, the new batch of Advanced Special Forces candidates were said to be very strong, 5 to 6 times stronger than the previous batch of Advanced Special Forces candidates. Each of them was almost as strong as an official Special Forces soldier. After that group of people showed their prowess, they actually applied to challenge Yun Jian and the rest for the official Advanced Special Forces positions. That was why the higher-ups sent a message to Gu Junjian, asking Yun Jian and the rest of Team Monarch to return to the military on the 10th day of the new year. Actually, it was almost impossible for advanced special forces candidates like Yun Jian and the rest to be directly promoted to advanced special forces soldiers. It was also because of Yun Jian and the rest's outstanding performance in the previous 2 missions that Gu Junjian applied to the higher-ups to fight for Yun Jian and the rest. Hence, Yun Jian and the rest were directly promoted to advanced special forces soldiers. It was a great honor because ever since the selection of advanced special forces candidates from the military, there had never been an advanced special forces candidate who could skip the special forces and become an advanced special forces soldier directly. Yun Jian and the rest were selected to be advanced special forces candidates because of their capabilities. On the other hand, all the advanced special forces candidates were selected from talented youths. On the other hand, the young men and women who became candidates for the advanced special forces had an absolute advantage over those who relied on military school to become special forces soldiers step by step. It was only a matter of time before anyone who became an advanced special forces candidate became an advanced special forces soldier. Of course, only 1 in a million could become an advanced special forces soldier. Out of 10,000 special forces, there might not even be 100 advanced special forces. Hence, the fact that Yun Jian's team of 7 had already become advanced special forces soldiers at such a young age was the envy of many. As for the new batch of advanced special forces candidates, they were the youths trained by Gu Yunjian's nemesis, Ai Guoxuan, who was also the leader of the advanced special forces. Due to their valiant abilities, they had applied to challenge Yun Jian's Team Monarch to replace Yun Jian and her team in the advanced special forces. To Gu Junjian and Yun Jian's team of 7, accepting the challenge would not benefit them at all. After all, the other party was here to snatch their positions. If Yun Jian's team of 7 lost, they would have to give up their current advanced special forces positions to the other party. If that happened, Yun Jian's team of 7 would have to start all over again as advanced special forces candidates. Gu Junjian was not worried about Yun Jian, but since the other party had accepted the challenge, it would definitely be a team battle. In other words, if one person in the team was weak, the entire team would be affected. Since Gu Junjian and Ai Guoxuan were rivals, Ai Guoxuan had purposely found a group of capable youths to snatch Yun Jian's team of 7's advanced special forces positions so that he could suppress Gu Junjian in terms of reputation. Chapter 507. The 10th of the new year? That means there are still 9 days left? Yun Jian raised a brow, her red lips curling into a slight smile. There was a refined glow on her face, making her look radiant. Her high ponytail cascaded down from the top of her head like a waterfall, miraculously making Yun Jian look spirited. Yun Jian had never cut her hair since her rebirth. Her long black hair was so smooth and shiny that it reached her waist even if she tied it into a high ponytail. Yun Jian looked even more ravishing in this state. The new year had just passed and Yun Jian was now 16 years old. At 16, Yun Jian was still developing, her twin mounds slightly protruding under the thick down jacket. Gu Junjian naturally did not pay attention to Yun Jian. He looked at Yun Jian seriously and nodded at Yun Jian. Yes, sir. Gu Junjian had received a notice from his superior that Team Monarch would have a PK with the ASF candidates trained by Ai Guoxuan on the 10th of the new year. Time was tight. Gu Junjian was not worried about Yun Jian because he had full confidence in Yun Jian. Gu Junjian, on the other hand, was worried about the other 6 members of Team Monarch. There was no need to worry about Jiang Weiwei's ability. Although Jiang Weiwei's ability was incomparable to Yun Jian's, she was the strongest among all the ASF candidates that Gu Junjian had trained over the years, other than Yun Jian, who was a godly existence. However, a PK like this was a team battle. It was a battle between a small team and a small team. It was a battle of teamwork. To be honest, other than Yun Jian and Jiang Weiwei, Chu Ning and the other 5 members were only above average in terms of ability. Like Team Monarch, the ASF candidates trained by Ai Guoxuan had a total of 7 members. However, everyone's ability was on par, and each of them was only slightly weaker than Jiang Weiwei. Gu Junjian couldn't help but feel a little flustered at the situation. Gu Junjian would never be happy to be oppressed by AI Guoxuan. 5 days is enough. Tell all Team Monarch members to gather at the military training camp on the 5th day of the new year. Under Gu Yunjian's solemn gaze, Yun Jian glanced at Gu Junjian, pursed her lips, and spoke softly. Gu Junjian raised his head in surprise, then looked at Yun Jian in shock. He could not help but ask, "You are?" Could it be that Yun Jian intended for her to train the 5 weaker members of Team Monarch? However, starting from the 5th day of the new year, there were only 5 days until the 10th day of the new year. Could she make Chu Ning and the others stronger in 5 days? That wasn't realistic, was it? After all, what the army advocated was perseverance. Only by persevering and training hard every day could one obtain a substantial increase in strength during the long period of training. Just make the arrangements. Yun Jian pursed her lips, a stunning smile on her face that was devoid of any makeup. Her naturally fair skin made Si, who was holding Xiao Yunju's hand, raise a brow. Because I have a way to improve their ability in a short period of time. Yun Jian turned to look at Gu Junjian again before she turned and returned to Si Yi and Xiao Yunju's side, taking over Si Yi's hand from Xiao Yunju. She did have a way to improve a person's ability in a short period of time. She could even turn the person into a professional assassin or secret agent in a few short months. Chapter 508. Upon hearing Yun Jian's words, Gu Junjian was stunned once again. However, since the other party was Yun Jian, Gu Junjian was not too surprised. After all, Yun Jian had given him plenty of surprises before. Moreover, other than trusting Yun Jian, Gu Junjian had no other choice. It was impossible for him to call everyone in Team Monarch back to the military training camp in the first few days of the new year. That was unrealistic because the first few days of the new year could be considered as everyone's rest day. During these few days, most people would stay at home. Gu Junjian would be too embarrassed to call them out and call them to the military training camp one by one. Moreover, even if they were to start training now, how could they improve a person's ability in just 9 days? Even if their ability could be improved after 9 days of training, there would not be much of a change. However, when Yun Jian said that she had the ability to improve Chu Ning and the other 4's abilities in just 5 days, Gu Junjian did not quite believe it, but he would still do as she said. There was only one reason for that: she never spoke empty words. Therefore, Gu Junjian chose to believe her unconditionally. "I'll arrange it." Gu Junjian stood behind Yun Jian and said to her, Yun Jian did not turn around, but she lowered her eyes slightly and the curve of her lips lifted slightly. She had to admit that if Gu Junjian were to be her mother, Qin Yiru's husband, Yun Jian felt that it was doable. "Sister, let's go out and play." Xiao Yunju was already holding Yun Jian's hand. He was very sensible and knew that Yun Jian and Gu Junjian were talking about business, so he did not say anything. When Yun Jian and Gu Junjian were done talking about business, Xiao Yunju said to Yun Jian. Xiao Yunju's well-behaved appearance let Yun Jian's heart soften. She immediately nodded, "Okay." "Xiao Jian, come back earlier. Dinner's almost ready. We can start eating when your grandma and the rest come back." When Qin Yiru heard that Yun Jian was going to take Xiao Yunju out to play, she immediately popped her head out of the kitchen and reminded her. Yun Jian nodded at Qin Yiru. Yun Yi was also outside. Before Yun Yi went to Longmen City First Senior High School, she had studied in Xinjiang Town Junior High School where Yun Jian used to study. Of course, when he was studying in Xinjiang, he did not know his current best friend, Su Haokul. In Xinjiang Town, Yun Yi naturally had friends. At this time, Yun Yi had not returned home yet. However, Yun Yi would come home on time. "Let's go." Yun Jian squatted down and pinched Xiao Yunju's soft cheeks lovingly. She then tugged at Xiao Yunju and gave Si Yi a look before pulling Xiao Yunju out with Si. When Yun Jian and Si Yi brought Xiao Yunju out, Gu Junjian slipped into the kitchen to help Qin Yiru. In the end, Gu Junjian could not help speaking up for Si Yi. "What do you think of the young man beside Yun Jian?" Gu Junjian did not know Si Yi's name yet. Qin Yiru paused at Gu Junjian's question before she smiled cheerfully. "Yi has a tough life. He lost his mother when he was young. He's quite pitiful. Gu Junjian did not mean anything else. He just wanted to test Qin Yiru on behalf of Yunjian and Si, who knew that Qin Yiru did not even think about it. I mean other aspects, Gu Junjian guessed again. Chapter 509. Qin Yiru had already treated Ce as her own child. Of course, Qin Yiru did not think too much about it. She only felt that Ce was pitiful because she had lost her biological mother at a young age. From Qin Yiru's point of view, Ce had always been with Yunjian purely because she had a good relationship with Yunjian. It was the kind of care that an older brother had for his younger sister. Other than that, Qin Yiru could not think of any other reason. Gu Junjian asked what was on his mind. After receiving the appropriate response, he did not ask about it anymore. Although he had only interacted with Qin Yiru for a short period of time, from yesterday to today, they had only interacted for less than a day. However, the two of them were very compatible. It was said that it was difficult to find a soulmate. Gu Junjian felt that he had probably found a soulmate this time. Because Qin Yiru could understand his pain, he could also understand Qin Yiru's pain. At night, Yunjian and Ce brought Xiao Yunju to eat dinner before lying down on the bed. Xiao Yunju had already hidden under the covers. Because the night was silent and the cold wind was blowing, the outside of the house was extremely cold. Only the inside of the house had a little warmth. In 1998, in the villages and towns, there was no such thing as heating and other luxurious items to keep out the cold. Therefore, when winter arrived, people would hide under the covers early and use their own body heat to warm their beds. Of course, Ce could not share the same bed as Yunjian tonight. Moreover, Qin Yiru had already laid out the blankets for him, so he would sleep in the same room and bed as Gu Junjian. However, Ce and Gu Junjian did not share the same blanket. Xiao Yunju slept with Qin Yiru. Xiao Yunju was still young, and there was no difference between men and women. In addition, Qin Yiru was very good at taking care of the children. She raised Yun-yi and Yunjian, so she naturally had her own way of taking care of the children. Zhang Meihua's family was not poor. They were one of the top families in the village. At Zhang Meihua's house, there were building blocks for children to play with. These building blocks were bought by Qin Lai for his daughter, Qin Fenger. In order to please Yunjian, Zhang Meihua found all the building blocks at home and moved them to Xiao Yunju's room for Xiao Yunju to play with. At this time, Xiao Yunju was hiding under the blanket. Yunjian was also in Xiao Yunju's room. Qin Yiru had not returned to her room to rest yet. Ce did not leave either. He was also lazing around in Xiao Yunju's room. At this moment, Ce was looking at Yunjian while Yunjian was looking at Xiao Yunju. Xiao Yunju, on the other hand, was looking at the building blocks in his hands, occasionally exclaiming excitedly, "Lion, lion. Jejia, Thij, Xiao Zhu made a big lion. Heh, lion's bite." Woo, let the lion eat Sigij first, because Sigij is a boy and Jejia is a girl. Children's logic was simple. Xiao Yunju's words made Yunjian and Ce laugh. All right, Xiao Zhu should sleep. It's almost 9 o'clock. Qin Yiru walked in wearing pajamas and a thick down jacket. You guys go to sleep too. I've made your bed for you. It's all brand new. No one has slept in it before. Qin Yiru knew that Ce was more precious. This could be seen from Ce's Lamborghini sports car. Hence, when Qin Yiru arranged Ce's bed, she had also arranged a brand new bed for Ce. Since Qin Yiru had said so, Ce could only watch as Yunjian went back to her room before he turned to head to Gu Yunjian's room. At night. Chapter 510. Ce was sleeping on the bed with his hands behind his head. When he heard Gu Yunjian's question, he was slightly taken aback, but his expression didn't change at all. The lights in the room were all off, but Gu Junjian, who was lying in front of the curtains, could still see Ce's every move clearly with the moonlight's reflection outside the curtains. His intuition told him that Ce wasn't simple. He could tell from Ce's every word and action. However, when Gu Junjian asked this question, Ce didn't reply at all. The night was quiet and there was nothing but the moonlight outside the window. Just when Gu Junjian thought Ce wouldn't reply to his question, Ce suddenly spoke. At the mention of Yunjian, Ce's voice immediately softened. I only want her for the rest of my life. He wasn't interested in her, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, and it wasn't just for fun. Since Si had set his mind on her, he wouldn't go back on his words. After hearing Si Yi's reply, even Gu Junjian paused. He was stunned. Clearly, he hadn't expected Si Yi to have such deep feelings for Yunjian. For the rest of his life. Many couples would use sweet words like, I only want you for the rest of my life, to express their love. But how many of them could make it to the end? As for Si Yi, he might not be good at expressing his love. He might not have said any sweet words to Yunjian. He might not even have said a simple, I love you. However, true love should be buried in one's heart. It shouldn't be talked about and used sweet words to coax girls. Gu Junjian could clearly feel Si Yi's heart. That determination was something Gu Junjian couldn't achieve. Gu Junjian didn't say anything after that. Although Gu Junjian didn't say anything, he knew from the bottom of his heart that Si Yi and Yunjian would be together sooner or later. The next morning, early in the morning, Yunjian got up. Of course, other than Yunjian, everyone who lived in Zhang Meihua's house also got up early. The second day of the new year was a joyous day. Early in the morning, Zhang Meihua called all of her immediate family members to pay their respects at Qin Youfu's grave. Qin Youfu had passed away many years ago. He was Yunjian's grandfather. Among Qin Yiru's family, only Qin Youfu treated Qin Yiru and Yunjian sincerely. It was a pity that he had already left this world. Zhang Meihua was Qin Youfu's first wife. Although she was vain, she treated her husband extremely well. Even after Qin Youfu passed away, Zhang Meihua never thought of finding another partner. Waking up early in the morning on the second day of the new year, she could already feel the chilly wind when she stretched her arms out from under the blanket. Going downstairs and opening the door, Yunjian realized that it was already snowy outside. Zhe Province's Longmen City was located in the southern part of country Z. It rarely snowed in Longmen City throughout the year. When Yunjian woke up, the snow outside was already piled up in a thick layer. Taking a breath, her lips parted slightly as warm air exhaled from the side of her mouth. The warm air went straight to the clouds. Yunjian waited for Zhang Meihua and the rest to arrange the incense before going up the mountain to pay respects to her grandfather. She could vaguely recall from the original owner's memory how much her grandfather, whom she had never met, loved her when he was alive. When Yunjian went, Si Yi went as well. Gu Junjian went as well out of courtesy. It was already noon when they returned home from paying their respects to Qin Youfu at the cemetery. For the whole day, Xiao Yunju played in the snow outside excitedly while Yunjian and Si fought in the snow with him. Chapter 5:11. On the fifth day of the new year, Yunjian left Xinjiang town with Gu Junjian. Because of Yunjian, Zhang Meihua treated Qin Yiru politely. Qin Yiru had nowhere to go during the new year, so she stayed in Xinjiang town. Xiao Yunju followed Qin Yiru. It had been some time since Si Yi rushed to Xinjiang town on the eve of the new year. And Han had a lot of work to do, so he left all his work on the eve of the new year and piled it on poor Adam and Mo Sin to look for Yunjian. Yunjian had gone to the military training camp, so she probably would not have time for the next few days. Therefore, Si Yi took the opportunity to return to Han. Yunjian, on the other hand, rode in Gu Yunjian's military jeep all the way to the military training camp. In the military training camp, other than Yunjian, the other 6 were already waiting in the camp after receiving the notice. Seeing Yunjian and Gu Junjian get out of the car, Chu Ning and the other 5 hurried over. You're all here? Gather and report your numbers. Gu Junjian, who was usually joking around, turned serious when it came to a formal occasion. When the 7 of them heard this, they immediately lined up and stood in formation, reporting their numbers one by one. Sir, all 7 members of Team Monarch are here. Captain Lu Shiyun shouted. Summoning everyone to the military training camp on the 5th day of the Lunar New Year? Winter break had just started, and the festive mood hadn't even passed yet. Summoning everyone back meant that there must be something important to discuss. At that moment, everyone knew what was going on. No one would complain about Gu Junjian calling them back to the military so early. That was because someone was eyeing their advanced special forces positions. None of them would be willing to give up their advanced special forces positions. That was inevitable. I'm sure everyone knows the situation by calling all of you back so early. I'll be frank with you. The average standard of their team members is definitely above yours. On our side, apart from Yun Jian and Jiang Weiwei, the other 5 of you are no match for him. Gu Junjian made everything clear. Naturally, Chu Ning and the other 4 would not be displeased with Gu Junjian for telling the truth. On the contrary, everyone present was eager to make a name for Team Monarch instead of being a burden. The PK with their team is scheduled for the 10th day of the new year. Now, you have 5 days to prepare. I will give these 5 days to Yun Jian and let Yun Jian train you. Gu Yunjian's words had always been straightforward. After Gu Junjian finished speaking, he added, "In these 5 days, I hope that everyone can do their best to improve their strength. I don't expect you to crush your opponent, but at the very least, you can't lose. Keep your positions in the advanced special forces. That's the least I ask of you." Gu Yunjian's words made everyone's blood boil. "Yes, sir." They replied in unison. They could not be defeated by their opponents as long as they could maintain a draw. However, for Chu Ning and the other 4, that was quite a challenge. "No, in 5 days, I'll make sure that all of you can defeat your opponents." At that moment, Yun Jian's ethereal words were heard. In these 5 days, she would make Chu Ning and the others experience a life worse than death training. Once they had gone through it, the advanced special forces candidates would not be a match for them. Even if they encountered high-level secret agents or assassins, they could escape easily. Chapter 5:12. Without turning to look, Yun Jian knew who the voice belonged to. Xiao Weiming. He was a member of the Champ Squad, one of the 3 teams that Gu Junjian had sent out during the mission to steal the antiques in Jia Province. He was also the one who had gotten into an argument with Chu Xiangnan on the bus back then. Xiao Weiming had always been unhappy with Yun Jian and the rest, especially after the successful completion of the mission by Yun Jian's 7-member Team Monarch, which resulted in the Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad being reprimanded by Gu Junjian. Xiao Weiming, along with his Champ Squad leader Yu Fengqing and all the other members of the Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad, hated Yun Jian and the rest. The reason for their reprimand was simple. The Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad were both advanced special forces members and were considered veterans in the military. In the previous mission, Yun Jian and the rest who were supposed to be candidates for the advanced special forces had completed the mission ahead of them. While the outcome was a pleasant surprise to Gu Junjian also gave the Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad a harsh reprimand. Because of that incident, the Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad, which Xiao Weiming was in, had their training mission increased by several times. All of this was thanks to Yun Jian. Therefore, when he heard Yun Jian's solemn vow, Xiao Weiming could not help but join in the fun. "Xiao Weiming, shut up and return to the team immediately." When Gu Junjian heard Xiao Weiming mocking Yun Jian right in front of him, he immediately frowned and growled at Xiao Weiming. Xiao Weiming and the rest were punished by Gu Junjian to return to the military training camp early on the 5th day of the Lunar New Year. This was also their punishment for not doing anything during the previous mission. Xiao Weiming was so angry at Gu Junjian's growl that he snorted at Yun Jian and gave her a look of disdain before storming off. He wanted to see what Yun Jian was capable of. The last task was only because she, Yun Jian, could speak the language of a country, so she was one step ahead of them in retrieving the antique. Even if Gu Junjian had boasted about her godly skills, how could she possibly be a match for him with her skinny arms and slender legs? He was 29 years old this year. He was considered one of the younger members of the Champ Squad, but he had been in the army for more than 10 years. No matter how strong Yun Jian was, could she go up to the sky? Xiao Weiming, Champ Squad's leader, Yu Fengqing, and the rest had indeed never seen Yun Jian's skills before. In the previous mission, when Xiao Weiming, Yu Fengqing, and the others finally encountered Yun Jian's team, Yun Jian had already completed the mission. At this moment, Xiao Weiming's hatred for Yun Jian was no small matter. Xiao Weiming was Gu Yunjian's subordinate, but he would rather have AI Guishuan's subordinate suppress Yun Jian, lose his dignity, and let his officer, Gu Junjian, lose than for Yun Jian to amaze the world again. After Xiao Weiming left, he stood not too far away, watching Yun Jian's team. It was the middle of winter and the chill was chilly, but Yun Jian's team was still outside, staring at Champ Squad and Flying Dragons. Actually, both Champ Squad and Flying Dragons were watching Yun Jian's side. Yun Jian could naturally feel their gazes, but it did not matter to Yun Jian. She did not even take Xiao Weiming's words seriously from the start. Standing in front of Chu Ning's team, Yun Jian did not make any move. She merely stood in front of them, watching them. A moment later, she continued the previous topic. 5 days is enough. I'm not kidding, but I'll make it clear first. If you want to improve your skills in 5 days, you'll have to pay the price. I won't let you pay the price with your lives, but I'll make you wish you were dead. Of course, as long as you're trained by me, I guarantee you'll defeat those people in 5 days. It'll be like child's play. Chapter 5:13. Gu Junjian had told Chu Ning and the rest about the current situation when he informed them. He had also pointed out that Yun Jian would be in charge of training them for the last 5 days. However, the process would definitely be arduous. However, if they did not train for the next 5 days, Gu Junjian had also clearly told them that their titles as Advanced Special Forces soldiers might be snatched away by the other party. If it was arduous, there was still hope of keeping their titles. If it was not arduous, their titles as Advanced Special Forces soldiers would be snatched away. The 6 of them, excluding Yun Jian, chose arduous without hesitation. Now that they had such an opportunity to improve their abilities, how could they give up their Advanced Special Forces positions and let someone else replace them? Yun Jian, no matter how arduous or tiring it is, we can take it. Chu Ning looked at Yun Jian seriously. She had changed from her usual cheeky demeanor to a solemn one. That's right. I, Chu Xiangnan, am not afraid of hardship. Chu Xiangnan agreed. At that moment, everyone was in high spirits. They had seen Yun Jian's skills. Although she was young, her abilities were not something an ordinary person could compare to. The few of them had been together for a long time since they first met. When had Yun Jian ever spoken empty words? When had she ever done something that she was not capable of? When had she not been the one leading them? Even their current Advanced Special Forces positions, it was not an exaggeration to say that these honors were earned by Yun Jian's leadership. Therefore, among the 6 of them, there was not a single one who did not trust Yun Jian. Even if they really lost their Advanced Special Forces identities this time, they would not regret trusting Yun Jian. If we don't trust you, who else can we trust? At that moment, even Jiang Weiwei, who had been putting on airs and dismissive of everyone, looked at Yun Jian with a determined gaze and continued speaking. All right, let's begin then. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. Her confident attitude caused Xiao Weiming and the others, who were standing far away, to be stunned. However, after being stunned for a moment, Xiao Weiming sneered in front of everyone and said with some indignation, "Huh, what are you pretending for?" However, no one paid any attention to Xiao Weiming. Let's start training. Yun Jian, should we increase the intensity of our training? Chu Xiangnan stretched his body and asked Yun Jian. According to Chu Xiangnan's point of view, if he wanted to improve his strength, he had to increase the distance or the weight he carried. That was what everyone thought. After all, apart from this, what other methods were there to quickly increase his strength? Unexpectedly, with Gu Junjian, Team Monarch, Champ Squad and Flying Dragons watching from afar, Yun Jian shook her head slightly, denying Chu Xiangnan's point of view. No. That's? Chu Xiangnan was confused. Actually, no one could understand. Logically, if they wanted to quickly improve their strength in a short period of time, why would Gu Junjian, who had such a method, not mention it? Therefore, no one, including Gu Junjian himself, could figure out what Yun Jian's method was. Yun Jian, tell us, tell us. Chu Ning could not wait any longer and urged Yun Jian. Yun Jian did not say it directly. Instead, she reached out and hooked her finger at Chu Xiangnan. Hit me. Use all your strength to defeat me. Chu Xiangnan was stunned, and so was everyone else. They were obviously confused and suspicious of Yun Jian's action. Chu Xiangnan was stunned for a moment before he reached out and attacked Yun Jian. He was the weakest in Team Monarch, but he was still much more powerful than the average person. However, just as Chu Xiangnan reached out to attack Yun Jian, before his hand could touch Yun Jian suddenly dodged Chu Xiangnan's attack. At the same time, she grabbed Chu Xiangnan's wrist and pinched his joint. "Ah, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts." Chu Xiangnan cried out in pain and stopped moving. Chapter 5:14. If Yun Jian had only said that she was going to teach them the killer move, perhaps no one would have believed her. Killing move, that was a move that assassins often used. Just like what Yun Jian had said, it was a one-hit kill. The biggest difference between a killer's move and an ordinary move was that the killer move was a one-hit kill. It was simple and brutal and could kill a person in the shortest amount of time. That was the way. However, everyone present also understood that an average person would not know how to learn a killer's move. Even if they did, the military would never imitate it. Although a killer was fast and agile when it came to killing, to become a qualified killer or special agent, one had to survive on the brink of death. The winner was king. In the world of killers and special agents, death was a constant presence. Yun Jian wanted to train Chu Ning and the other 5. She would not ask them to kill each other like how she trained killers to pick the strongest one. That was something she had experienced in the organization when she was a special agent, slaying God, in her previous life. However, there were ways to improve Chu Ning and the other 5 skills in a short period of time. What Yun Jian said just now, however, shocked everyone present. This included Xiao Weiming and the rest who were standing far away, as well as Gu Junjian who was standing next to Yun Jian and the other 5. Killer move? A killer's move? Yun Jian, you know a killer move? Chu Xiangnan was completely stunned. He stared blankly at Yun Jian and could not help but ask. Even Gu Junjian pricked up his ears and listened attentively. Gu Junjian even recalled that he had initially recruited Yun Jian to be a candidate for the Advanced Special Forces because Yun Jian had exposed herself and killed Wolf Blade, who was ranked 10th on the international killer chart. What did that mean? The 20 people in the top 10 of the assassin and secret agent rankings were all global 3S wanted criminals. However, to capture one of these 20 people, how much force would be needed and how many special forces elites would be sacrificed to subdue them? Yun Jian, on the other hand, had killed Wolf Blade, who was ranked 10th on the killer chart, all by herself. Xiao Weiming, Yu Fengqing and the rest who were standing far away were also dumbfounded. Yun Jian knew a killer move. And just now, when Chu Xiangnan attacked her, wasn't the strength she displayed the usual move of an assassin? I once met an old man. He taught me all these. Yun Jian blinked. This was not the first time she had lied. But when she was lying, her eyes didn't twitch and her heart didn't tremble, so no one realized that she was lying. In fact, Yun Jian's words were mixed with some truth. Back then, there was indeed an old man who taught her hypnotism. This old man was also very important to Yun Jian. However, these killer moves were based on Yun Jian's years of experience as an international female secret agent. After Yun Jian finished her explanation, everyone quickly believed her. Then hurry up and teach us. Upon hearing that he was going to learn a killer move, Chu Xiangnan couldn't wait any longer and shouted urgently. There's no hurry. However, what he received was Yun Jian's gentle smile. At this moment, even Xiao Weiming and the rest who were standing far away were extremely eager to know what Yun Jian's so-called killer move was all about. Moreover, from Yun Jian's moves just now, it could be seen that she was definitely capable. Xiao Weiming and the rest didn't realize that the reason they were so eager to see Yun Jian teach Chu Ning and the rest the killer move was because they also wanted to broaden their horizons or learn from her. However, they heard Yun Jian's lips curl as she continued, "Let's go to the training ground. I'll teach you then." Every team had their own training ground. The other teams were not allowed to enter another team's training ground. Chapter 5:15. Good. We should have gone to our own training ground a long time ago. Yun Jian, you can't let those snobs peek at your amazing moves. Chu Xiangnan was the first to clap his hands and shout. As he spoke, Chu Xiangnan glared at Xiao Weiming without hesitation. That glare made Yu Fengqing and the others who were standing a distance away feel awkward. However, amidst the awkwardness, Xiao Weiming snorted coldly and turned his head, muttering stubbornly, "What kind of stupid move is that? Who wants to see it? Heh, what can it do?" Chu Xiangnan did not mention any names, but Xiao Weiming had taken it for granted. What was more frightening was that Xiao Weiming himself did not realize that he had taken on the role of the snob that Chu Xiangnan was referring to. Chu Xiangnan and Chu Ning could not help but look at each other and burst into laughter. Xiao Weiming himself had no idea that he was the one who Chu Xiangnan and Chu Ning were laughing at. "Let's go." Yun Jian held back her laughter. Her red lips curled, and her beautiful face looked even more charming under the cold winter sun. Hence, the group headed to Team Monarch's training ground. Gu Junjian naturally had the right to follow. As for Xiao Weiming and the others, they were eager to follow, but due to their earlier belittling of Yun Jian, the group of men stood rooted to the ground and did not move an inch. In the end, Yu Fengqing grumbled but appeared to be fair as he reprimanded Xiao Weiming. "Little Xiao, we're veterans in the army. Don't be so rude to the newbies in the future. We should coexist peacefully." Yu Fengqing would not have said that if it was before Yun Jian showed off her abilities. What did he say about Yun Jian and the others back then? When he was on his way to Country A for the mission, he had pointed out that Yun Jian and the others were young and hot-headed in front of the three teams. To put it bluntly, Yu Fengqing meant that Yun Jian and the other newbies thought too highly of themselves. However, the change in attitude was so obvious. At this moment, even a fool could tell that Yu Fengqing was upset because Yun Jian wanted to teach them martial arts but didn't let them watch. So Yu Fengqing was angry and implicated Xiao Weiming in his anger. Xiao Weiming was very unwilling to accept this. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he didn't dare to disobey the words of his champ squad's leader, Yu Fengqing. He could only absent-mindedly reply, "Yes." Yun Jian's team of 7 and Gu Junjian had arrived at Team Monarch's exclusive training ground. The area of the training ground was not particularly large, but it had all the training equipment that one could ever need. Before they became advanced special forces, Yun Jian and the rest had trained in the training camp. Now that they had become advanced special forces, they were given their own training grounds in the military. The training ground was open air, but it was divided into different areas. For example, Xiao Weiming and the others were not allowed to enter Team Monarch's territory. This would also allow each team of advanced special forces to restrain themselves and improve their capabilities. "Yun Jian, those stinking bugs aren't here. Can you teach us now?" As soon as they arrived at the training ground, Chu Xiangnan couldn't wait to learn how Yun Jian pinched his wrist joint to make his body go limp from the pain. Chapter 5:16. When this human organ diagram was unfolded, it was as long as a person. Furthermore, the human organs in the diagram were scaled from head to toe. It could be said that the entire human body structure could already be displayed in this organ diagram. Chu Ning and the rest watched as Yun Jian took out a folded piece of paper from her trouser pocket and then unfolded the folded human organ diagram. For a moment, they only felt very puzzled. This diagram represents the structure of the human organs and the dislocation of the bones. Yun Jian spoke at the same time. She looked up and saw that everyone was looking at her in confusion, so she explained, "I bought this diagram from the roadside." Alright, back to the main topic. Yun Jian took the human organ diagram and led everyone to a small round stone table. She unfolded the diagram and pointed at it, saying to everyone, "Before learning any killer move, you must understand the human body's structure. The killer move is to kill with one move. It must be fast, accurate, ruthless, and cruel. For example, if an official killer wants to kill someone and he doesn't even understand the human body structure, what should he do when he stabs the other person's heart but realizes that he has missed? There's no other way. If he misses and the other person is not completely dead, then the person who dies will be him. If he dies because he doesn't understand the human body's structure, then he deserves it." Yun Jian's sharp eyes glanced at everyone. She clearly caught the shock in everyone's eyes. Her words might have sounded a little harsh in their ears. However, in the world of killers and secret agents, this was the way to survive. If they didn't have the ability and made the slightest mistake, they would die. Then they deserved it. I'm not saying this to make all of you into killers and secret agents. But at least when you fight with your opponent, you must understand the other person's body structure. You just need to grasp the other person's weakness, then you can win with just one move. So today, you must memorize this human organ diagram. Imprint it in your mind. I don't have time to wait for you to slowly memorize it. I'll give you 3 hours. If you can't memorize it in 3 hours, then don't blame me for being rude. Yun Jian said all that in one breath before she reined in her usual curl, her expression solemn like never before. While she was speaking, the other 6 people, including Gu Junjian, were listening attentively. After saying that, Yun Jian took out 5 diagrams of human organs from her pocket and handed them to Chu Ning and the others, along with the one on the small stone table. Gu Junjian didn't because she didn't expect that Gu Junjian would come to watch her train Chu Ning and the others. She had bought these pictures from a roadside stall. Upon hearing Yun Jian's words, Chu Ning and the others, including Jiang Weiwei who was already strong enough, took out the map of human organs and began to memorize them. The only way to imprint a picture in one's mind was to commit it to memory. This was completely different from memorizing words. However, Chu Ning and the others were quite impressive. In just 3 hours, they had already memorized the human organ diagram. Yun Jian checked it once. Other than Chu Xiangnan, who was still a little confused, the others had already memorized the human organ diagram. It was only after they had memorized the human anatomy that Yun Jian took out a red pen from her pants pocket and drew a few red circles on Chu Ning's human organ diagram. Chapter 517. In the time that followed, Yun Jian did not teach them any skills, only asking them to memorize the structure of the human organ map. Chu Ning and the girls were diligent, doing whatever Yun Jian asked them to do. However, other than memorizing the human organ map on the first day, Chu Ning and the girls did not learn anything else. Night fell quickly and the military training continued into the night. When Yun Jian announced the end of the first day's training, Chu Ning and the girls could not help inhaling sharply. It was not tiring in the beginning as they only needed to memorize the human organ map. However, after memorizing it, they had to memorize it again and again. It was a torturous feeling. And this was only the beginning. At night, Gu Junjian drove them home in the jeep. In the end, Gu Junjian said that he could send Yun Jian to Zhang Meiwa's house in Xinjiang town. Of course, it was a 2-hour drive from Longmen City to Xinjiang town. Gu Junjian drove Yun Jian there, so he had a reason to stay the night in Xinjiang town. Yun Jian did not reject Gu Junjian's kindness. Coincidentally, Yun Jian wanted to go to Xinjiang town as well. After all, Qin Yiru, Yun Yi, and Xiao Yunzhu were still staying at Zhang Meiwa's house in Xinjiang town. On the way back to Xinjiang town, Gu Junjian chatted with Yun Jian out of boredom. Suddenly reminded of her mother, Qin Yiru, and Gu Junjian, Yun Jian could not help asking, "Do you have a family, Officer Gu?" Yun Jian was straightforward and did not like to beat around the bush. Gu Junjian was taken aback by her straightforward question. But soon, Gu Junjian smiled and shook his head. "I've already divorced my ex-wife. I have a son, but he doesn't like me. He went abroad to study." As he spoke, Gu Junjian sighed helplessly. "Okay." Yun Jian nodded and didn't ask any more questions. After all, this was Gu Yunjian's private matter. It would be strange if she asked too much. Returning to Zhang Meiwa's house in Xinjiang town from Longmen City was quite extravagant. After all, gas was expensive these days. They had to go to the military training camp for the next 5 days. If they traveled like this every day, the gas consumption of the car would not be small. However, Yun Jian didn't care about this amount of money, and neither did Gu Junjian. Although Gu Junjian did not have much time to rest, as a high-ranking military officer, his monthly income was immeasurable. Gu Yunjian's residences were also luxurious mansions that occupied the best spots in Longmen City. It was already 8:30 in the evening when they returned to Xinjiang town. Xiao Yunzhu had already gone to bed on time. Qin Yiru was still cleaning up when Gu Junjian ran over to help. Everyone was there except for Si. He probably wouldn't be back anytime soon after returning to Hun Group. He had only left for a short while, but she was already missing him. Yun Jian looked out of the window and stared at the moon hanging in the sky. She suddenly felt emotional. Was he looking at the moon in the sky as well? Xiao Jian. Her brother Yun Yi's voice came from behind. Yun Jian did not turn around, but she answered, brother. Yun Yi came over and stood beside Yun Jian, looking up at the moon through the window as well. He hesitated before asking, Xiao Jian, do you know where she is now? The she Yun Yi was referring to was Qin Yu. Yun Jian's interest was piqued at once. She stopped looking at the moon and shifted her gaze back to Yun Yi with a smile. Qin Yu's home. I'm planning to visit Qin Yu on the 12th of the Lunar New Year. But, brother, do you want to go too? Yun Jian asked in a roundabout way. Chapter 5:18. Yun Jian nodded. Although Qin Yu was a high-ranking member of kosher mercenaries, she was not an orphan. Back then, Qin Yu had learned the art of poison under Snake. Lizard before Snake. Lizard arranged for her to follow Yun Jian. Qin Yu was brought back by the organization when she was young. She already had a memory back then. When Qin Yu followed Yun Jian, she was capable as well. It was not difficult for Qin Yu to find her biological parents with a little effort. If it were not for the military, Yun Jian would have gone to Qin Yu's house long ago to pay her a New Year's visit. After Yun Jian spoke, Yun Yi fell silent. Both of them looked at the upside-down moon in the sky in silence. I'll go to bed first. Yun Jian pressed her lips together and blinked her pretty eyes at Yun Yi. We have to wake up early tomorrow. I'll go back to sleep too. Yun Yi nodded and went back to their respective bedrooms with Yun Jian. Ever since Yun Yi and Zhang Xiaofeng started training with Yun Jian, they had not stopped for a single day. He would go for a morning run after waking up early every day or practice throwing chopsticks that Yun Jian had taught him. He was never tired. In Yun Yi's opinion, if he did not work harder as his younger sister's brother, how could he continue to be Xiao Jian's brother? It was a dreamless night. The next morning, Yun Jian woke up early as usual. She woke up naturally at a little past 4 in the morning. When it was 4:30, Yun Jian rolled over and stood up from the bed. She did not usually have the habit of taking off her clothes to sleep. It was a habit from her previous life. She had to be alert at all times in her previous life. She was the top secret agent in the international ranking, an identity that would make her peers jealous. Hence, there were plenty of people who wanted to kill her and take her place. If she took off her clothes to sleep at night and was suddenly attacked in the middle of the night, she would not even have time to put on her clothes. Hence, she had always slept straight away without taking off her clothes. Yun Jian groped her way out of bed in the dark. Gu Junjian had also woken up. He was sitting on the bench downstairs, putting on his shoes. It seemed that he had just woken up. They had to gather at the military training camp at 6:30, and it would take at least 2 hours to reach the camp from Xinjiang town. Therefore, Yun Jian and Gu Junjian had already decided to wake up at 4:30 a.m. sharp. Officer Gu, let's go. Yun Jian said when she saw that Gu Junjian had put on his shoes. Gu Junjian responded, and then walked out with Yun Jian. Wait, Xiao Jian, Officer Gu. Qin Yuru's voice suddenly came from the kitchen behind them. She hurriedly ran out and stuffed 2 eggs and 4 buns into Yun Jian and Gu Junjian's hands. Take these with you. You can't skip breakfast, Qin Yuru said considerately. As she spoke, she passed the eggs and buns to Yun Jian and Gu Junjian. Her fingers accidentally touched Gu Junjian's calloused hand. Qin Yuru blushed and turned away reluctantly. Let's go. Gu Junjian's handsome face was resolute as he smiled and told Yun Jian. Yun Jian had also seen the interaction between Qin Yuru and Gu Junjian. After asking about Gu Junjian's family background and learning that he had divorced his ex-wife, Yun Jian was no longer against Qin Yuru and Gu Junjian. It was a 2-hour drive. As usual, everyone gathered at the military training ground. For the next 4 days, Yun Jian fulfilled her words. She would not let them die. She would only make them wish they were dead. Be it the execution, technique, or speed, Yun Jian would punish Chu Ning and the other 5 if they made the slightest mistake. The punishment was so severe that they did not even have the strength to raise their hands. Amidst Chu Ning and the other 5's screams, The 4 days that felt like years had finally passed. Chapter 5:19. On the 5th morning, Gu Junjian brought Yun Jian and the other 6 members of Team Monarch to F Province. Ai Guixuan was F Province's Advanced Special Forces officer, and the group of ASF candidates he trained were the elites selected from the nation's youths. It was the higher-ups who informed Gu Junjian to bring Team Monarch to F Province's military base for a PK. Fortunately, F Province was neither too far nor too near. It would take about 5 to 6 hours of driving to reach F Province's military base from Longmen City. F Province was the closest to the ocean in J Province. It could be said that F Province was a city that sat along the ocean. The economy here was among the upper echelons. It was one of the top trade zones in the country. It was even crowned with the honorary title of City of the Ocean. It would take more than 10 hours of driving to and fro from F Province. It was dangerous to drive for a long time, so Gu Junjian arranged for them to stay in a hotel in F Province for a night. Gu Junjian's current arrangement was to head to the military base once they arrived in F Province and PK with Ai Guixuan's ASF candidates. No matter the outcome, they had to relax at night since they were finally in F Province. After all, it was not every day that they could come to F Province's City of the Ocean. After settling the accommodations in the hotel, Gu Junjian drove to F Province's military base in a jeep. What should I do? Yun Jian, I'm so nervous. Chu Ning was fidgeting in the car. Every time she thought about how the PK later would determine if they could continue to stay in the Advanced Special Forces, she would feel anxious. Although Chu Ning could clearly feel that her capability had improved significantly after 5 days of training. Don't worry, just let nature take its course. In contrast, Yun Jian was relaxed with a piece of paper between her fingers. What was printed on the paper was none other than the name list and resume of the Advanced Special Forces candidate team that went up against Team Monarch. Battling Dragons. That was the team's name. The information in Yun Jian's hand had the name, gender, and age of each of her opponents clearly written on it. We're here. Don't be nervous. It's fine even if we lose. Gu Junjian stopped the jeep in front of F Province's military base and spoke to the group in the car. He would not blame them even if they lost. With Gu Junjian's reply, the group's anxiety was instantly soothed. A group of people was already standing at the entrance of F Province's military base. Standing at the front was a middle-aged man dressed in an Advanced Special Forces uniform. His looks were slightly inferior to Gu Junjian's, but he carried himself with a natural military posture. He was watching the jeep slowly drive over. He was Ai Gu Junjian's arch-nemesis. The moment Ai Guixuan saw the jeep, he turned his head sideways to look at the group of aggressive youths behind him and said, "Failure is not an option in this PK. Do you understand?" Upon closer inspection, there were a total of 7 people in the group, and only one of them was a girl. They were Battling Dragons, the ASF candidate team that was going to challenge Yun Jian's Team Monarch. At this moment, the group of people saw the jeep slowly stop. Then the door opened, and a delicate and pretty girl jumped out of the jeep. Her movements were clean and neat. The group's eyes lit up at the girl's appearance. Chapter 5:20. Yun Jian's fresh and pretty appearance did make everyone's eyes light up. The 6 youths from Battling Dragons, in particular, could not help inhaling sharply when they saw Yun Jian's face. After Yun Jian alighted, Chu Ning and the rest followed suit. Gu Junjian led Yun Jian and the rest to the entrance of F Province's military base and met Ai Guixuan's gaze. "Officer Gu, how have you been?" Ai Guixuan's gaze sharpened when he saw Gu Junjian. Naturally, there was a hint of hatred in his tone when he met his enemy. Although Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan were both leaders and officers of the Advanced Special Forces, their grudge had to be traced back to the past. 20 years ago, Gu Junjian, Ai Guixuan, and a man around their age were actually sworn brothers. The 3 of them had trained together, lived together, and were so close that they would chat under the same blanket in the middle of the night. There was one night when they were caught by their superior officer and were punished to do the horse stance for the entire night. The next day, all 3 of them were on the ground. However, The bond between the three brothers grew deeper and deeper. Until one day Ai Guishuan did something that Gu Junjian would never forgive him for. It was an S-rank mission with a high difficulty. The three of them were sent to annihilate a criminal's lair. During the mission, Ai Guishuan's whereabouts were exposed and he was caught. Gu Yunjian's other good buddy ignored the superior's order for them to retreat and risked their lives to save Ai Guishuan with Gu Junjian. They managed to save Ai Guishuan, but at the last moment, Ai Guishuan used Gu Yunjian's good buddy as a shield out of fear. Gu Yunjian's good buddy was dead. He died for Ai Guishuan. The special forces could face death at any time. Although Ai Guishuan used Gu Yunjian's good buddy as a shield, he was too eager to succeed and reported to his superior that Gu Yunjian's good buddy was mistakenly killed by the enemy. Gu Junjian came from a well-to-do family, but his family could not compare to Ai Guishuan's. Ai Guishuan used his family background to wipe away all the stains in his life, allowing him to continue his perfect life. On the other hand, Gu Yunjian's brother had died in vain for Ai Guishuan. After this incident, Gu Junjian and Ai Guishuan's brotherly relationship turned from the closest to the most hostile. To this day, Gu Junjian was still unable to walk out of his regret. He regretted not persuading his brother to sacrifice his precious life for someone like Ai Guishuan. But it was too late. Nice to meet you. Gu Junjian glared at Ai Guishuan, his tone devoid of courtesy. Ai Guishuan did not give Gu Junjian much face either. He looked at Gu Junjian and snorted at Yunjian and the rest who were standing beside Gu Junjian. Seeing that they were all skinny and weak, he suddenly looked imposing. This way please. Ai Guishuan's tone was casual when he said that. Ha! Gu Junjian scoffed and waved for Yunjian and the rest to follow him into the camp. This was because the team members under the two Advanced Special Forces officers would be competing for a spot in the Advanced Special Forces. Therefore, there would be officers with a higher rank than Gu Junjian and Ai Guishuan. The PK had not officially begun since the officers had yet to arrive. Yunjian and the rest stood where they were while Chu Ning and the rest were already doing the warm-up exercises that Yunjian had taught them earlier. Chapter 521. There were 7 people in Battling Dragons as well, 6 guys and 1 girl. The girl didn't say much. As for the other 6 boys, this plump young man who weighed more than 100 kilograms was the most conspicuous one. In terms of physique, Battling Dragons looked much bigger than Team Monarch. Especially the fatty named Lin Quan who weighed over 200 caddies. One look at his size and one would think that he was immensely strong. Yun Jian and the rest were all tall and skinny, looking as if they had no strength. Looking at the difference in physique, even Gu Junjian could not help frowning. Ai Guishuan, on the other hand, shot Gu Junjian a challenging glance. He had heard about it long ago. Among the 7 members of Team Monarch, only Yun Jian and Jiang Weiwei were capable. As for the other 5, their abilities were nothing to be scoffed at. Therefore, Ai Guishuan had come prepared this time. The 7 members of Battling Dragons were all equally skilled. It was fine if 2 of them lost to Yun Jian and Jiang Weiwei, as long as the other 5 won. This was because this was a PK match between teams. Ai Guishuan cursed inwardly. This time, he would defeat Gu Junjian. Officer Yuan is here. At this moment, a Special Forces soldier standing by the side saw a figure walking towards them and could not help but exclaim in surprise. Officer Yuan was Gu Junjian and Ai Guishuan's superior, and also the judge in this PK match between Team Monarch and Battling Dragons. Gu Junjian and Ai Guishuan saluted Officer Yuan immediately. You're here? Is everyone here? Officer Yuan glanced at Yun Jian's team of 7 and Battling Dragons amiably and asked with narrowed eyes. Yes. Shall we begin, Officer Yuan? Lin Quan shook his plump body and threw a challenging look at Team Monarch again. However, when his gaze landed on Yun Jian, Lin Quan retracted his provocative gaze. This little beauty was too pretty. Just looking at it made his heart itch uncontrollably. Other than that girl, the other 6 youths in Battling Dragons team were actually sizing up Yun Jian. What about you guys? Officer Yuan turned his gaze to Yun Jian and the others and asked kindly. We are always ready, Yun Jian said without looking up. Yun Jian was the core of Team Monarch. Oh! Officer Yuan seemed to be particularly interested in Yun Jian's words. He could not help but speak again. Yun Jian's strength had already caused a sensation among the officers all over the country. Officer Yuan had seen Yun Jian's photo before, so he couldn't help but ask with interest. We have to be prepared at all times because they will lose without a doubt. Yun Jian repeated what she had just said and added another sentence. How frivolous! However, after hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone's hearts trembled. Pretty girl, don't be so harsh with your words. What do you mean by we will lose without a doubt? Don't you know that there's always someone better than you? Lin Quan's fiery gaze roamed unabashedly on Yun Jian. In front of Gu Junjian, Officer Yuan, and everyone else, Yun Jian turned back to look at Lin Quan and said frivolously, "If you're that mountain, we'll flatten you today." Victory was Team Monarch's for sure. Chapter 522. Flatten the ground, huh? Ha! Chief Yuan laughed heartily at that. When the members of Battling Dragon Squad heard Officer Yuan's laughter, their expressions immediately turned ugly. When Chief Yuan was done laughing, he announced, "I hereby announce the official start of the PK between Team Monarch and Team Battling Dragons." Everyone's ears perked up as soon as Chief Yuan finished his announcement. As expected, Chief Yuan began to arrange the content of the competition after his announcement. As an excellent advanced Special Forces soldier, I think physical fitness is the foundation. Therefore, I've divided this PK into 2 rounds. The first round will be climbing a mountain, said Chief Yuan as he turned to reveal a mountain range behind him. I've arranged for 14 little red flags to be placed at the top of the mountain. Your mission is to get up there as fast as you can, retrieve the little red flags and return here, said Chief Yuan with a meaningful smile. He continued, I'm only looking at the top 7 teams. Whichever team has the most members will be the winner of this round. What I want is unity and cooperation, not one-sided individuals. Alright, we can begin now. As soon as Officer Yuan finished speaking, the members of Battling Dragon Squad ran toward the mountain range like mad bulls. Yun Jian was not in a hurry. She waved at them and instructed Chu Ning and the rest in front of Gu Junjian, Ai Guishuan, and Chief Yuan, maintain a steady pace. Remember, don't force your way through and don't talk when you're up the mountain. Alright, let's go. She then gestured for Chu Ning and the rest to run up the mountain. Chief Yuan stood where he was in shock when he heard Yun Jian's words. How could a young girl like her have such strategy and foresight? Take Team Battling Dragons for example. They ran ahead when they heard that the competition was about to begin. Although they were one step ahead now, it was hard to tell what would happen in the end. The mountain range was a semicircle that extended all the way to the top of the mountain. However, Team Battling Dragons, who were running at the front, was already way ahead. Therefore, the members of the Battling Dragon Squad were still somewhat complacent. You can't catch up, right? None of you can. The top 7 are all members of our Battling Dragon Squad. You're going to lose for sure. Beside Lin Quan, a burly boy who was about 1.75 meters tall couldn't help but turn around and laugh at Yun Jian and the others. However, the boy's mockery did not receive any response from Chu Ning and the others. Because Yun Jian had said not to talk on the mountain. Conserve your energy and maintain the same speed from the beginning to the end. As the slope became steeper and steeper, Battling Dragons ran at a fast pace at the beginning, but by the time they reached the top, their running speed was no different from that of a snail. At this time, Lin Quan and the others were burning with anxiety. What should we do? They're about to catch up. The only girl in Battling Dragons asked. At this moment, Yun Jian's group of 7 had already closed in on the members of Battling Dragons. I'll stop them. Hurry up and rush to the top of the mountain, take the little red flag and run down the mountain. As long as we get 4 of the top 7 spots, we'll win. Lin Quan suddenly stopped and shouted at the other members of Battling Dragon. When the other members of Battling Dragons heard him, they continued to move forward. Lin Quan, on the other hand, turned around and stood in front of Yun Jian's group of 7, blocking them from passing. Lin Quan's body was more than 100 kilograms. He was sturdy and strong, like a thick wall of meat. He stood in the middle of the aisle, blocking Yun Jian's group of 7. Seeing that Yun Jian's group was about to reach the aisle that he was blocking, Lin Quan suddenly had a wicked idea. He chuckled and looked at Yun Jian, who was running at the front of the group, tempting her. "Pretty girl, don't even think about passing through here today. However, I can make an exception for you. As long as you give me a kiss and let me touch you, I'll let you pass alone. What do you think?" Chapter 523. Yun Jian beat him up. Lin Quan's vulgar words made even Chu Ning, who was running behind him, curse out loud. After hearing Lin Quan's shameless words, Chu Ning could not care less about Yun Jian's earlier advice. This fatty is too disgusting. How did someone like him get selected into the advanced special forces? Hee. Lin Quan, who weighed more than 200 kilograms, stood there motionless. Needless to say, he was the heavyweight of battling dragons, and he was also the one with the greatest strength. Even the big trees on the ground could be uprooted with great difficulty. Not to mention blocking Yun Jian and the rest from passing through this passageway that was less than 1.5 meters wide. Lin Quan was thinking about Yun Jian's voluptuous figure. He would feel like he was floating in the air if he were to touch such a beautiful woman. Lin Quan was just thinking about this when Yun Jian reached the staircase that was one step lower than him. Yun Jian smirked coldly. She extended her leg and kicked the staircase up without saying a word. Hee, pretty girl, you should give up struggling. You want to kick me with your leg? Before he could finish his sentence, Lin Quan suddenly felt Yun Jian's kick was full of strength and his fat body was tilting to the side. Bam! Lin Quan's fat body fell to the ground with a loud thud. When Lin Quan felt the force of Yun Jian's kick, his round eyes widened and widened again. It was only when his 200-kilogram body fell to the ground that he felt immense pain and fear spread from his heart to his surroundings. At this moment, Yun Jian had already walked past Lin Quan and ran forward without saying a word. Chu Ning and the rest then walked past Lin Quan, who was on the ground, and ran up the mountain. Chu Ning could not hold herself back. When she walked past Lin Quan, she said angrily, "You want to touch my Yun Jian? Damn fatty, you must have a death wish. Ha, this is your retribution." After saying that, Chu Ning caught up with the team without looking back. After Lin Quan fell to the ground, the intense pain made him lose the strength to stand up. At this moment, Yun Jian had already led Chu Ning and the rest to the top of the mountain. Apart from Lin Quan, the other 6 members of Battling Dragons were right in front of Yun Jian. F***CK, they're catching up. Didn't that damn fatty stop them? A skinny and lean boy from Battling Dragon Squad turned around and exclaimed in shock and horror. This boy's name was Su Rui. Su Rui was probably the slimmest boy in Battling Dragon's team. He was 1.8 meters tall, and his appearance was quite similar to that of the girls in school. Even if we die, we can't let them catch up to us. We have to win this round. If we lose this round, we'll only get a draw at most. A draw will also mean our failure. The only girl in Battling Dragons said with a frown. The only girl in Battling Dragons was named Yu Luo. What Yu Luo said was very reasonable. There were only 3 possibilities for this PK: win, lose, or draw. The former would allow Battling Dragons to replace Yun Jian and the other Advanced Special Forces members. However, if Battling Dragons lost or drew with Team Monarch, it would mean that they were not qualified to replace Yun Jian and the other Advanced Special Forces members. They could only do so if they won. Even if it was a draw, they had no chance. Chapter 524. By the time Yu Luo muttered to herself, the peak was already within sight. Ever since Yun Jian's team caught up with Yu Luo's team, they had been following behind them and did not try to catch up to them in one go. At this point, Yun Jian's team had been running at a steady pace, so they still had plenty of stamina. In comparison, Yu Luo's team was already panting. Moreover, they had been talking all the way, so they used up even more energy. Hence, when they reached the peak, they found it strenuous to even bend down to pick up the little red flags on the ground. However, with sheer willpower, they grabbed the little red flags and rushed down the mountain. Going downhill was much easier than going uphill. More importantly, Going downhill was an easy feat even if one did not have enough stamina. However, when a person climbed all the way to the peak and used up most of their stamina, their legs would tremble like springs when they went downhill. That was what Yu Luo's team felt. However, when they went downhill, Yun Jian's team was not panting at all. Their legs did not even tremble. Chu Ning and the others followed closely behind Yun Jian. They were waiting for Yun Jian's signal. Yun Jian, on the other hand, followed Yu Luo's team the whole way. She had no intention of overtaking them. As for Yu Luo's team, they started to panic because Yun Jian's team was following closely behind them. Their legs were still trembling violently, but they ran faster and faster. Just like that, the team held the little red flags. Battling dragons ran in front while Yun Jian's team followed closely behind. Soon, they reached the foot of the mountain. They even ran into Lin Quan along the way. Lin Quan was big and running was not his forte, so he decided to give up after running for a while. However, he failed to stop Yun Jian's team on the path and fell instead. He was in so much pain that he could not even walk, let alone participate in the competition. At this point, Yu Luo and the others were only a dozen steps away from reaching the flat ground. When they reached flat ground, they still needed to run another 300 to 400 meters before they could return to where they were. At this point, Yu Luo and the others could clearly feel that Yun Jian and the others were gradually increasing their speed. Was he going to lose? Yu Luo gritted her teeth. She waved her hand and motioned for the people beside her to carry out the plan she had just discussed. Their battling dragon squad must not lose. Gu Junjian, Ai Guishuan, and Chief Yuan were waiting for them to descend the mountain. At this moment, the three of them had mixed feelings. Ai Guishuan, in particular, dug his fingernails into the fat flesh of his palm. He had been unhappy with Gu Junjian for a long time, which was why he had spent a lot of effort to find out the talents of the younger generation such as Yu Luo in this PK competition. Then he had focused on training them. Their goal was to prepare for this day. For today, they would be able to suppress Gu Junjian. They're here. Chief Yuan could not help exclaiming when he saw a few silhouettes sprinting toward the flat ground about a dozen steps away. Chief Yuan saw two of Yu Luo's teams suddenly stop when they were about to reach the last few steps. Just as Yun Jian was about to overtake them, the two of them blocked her way, attempting to pull Yun Jian's team back. As long as they could hold Yun Jian's team back, Yu Luo's team would reach the flat ground and return to where Chief Yuan and the others were. Battling dragons would then win. Among the 7 of them, a team would win as long as 4 of their members arrived first. Chapter 525. Those who could be selected as candidates for the Advanced Special Forces were definitely capable. On the other hand, Battling Dragons and Team Monarch were evenly matched. The reason why Battling Dragons dared to challenge Team Monarch was that the team led by Yu Luo and the rest had completed many military missions just like Team Monarch. Although their results were not as shocking as Team Monarch's, they were still capable in general. When they first ran up the mountain, everyone in Battling Dragons was confident and even secretly despised Yun Jian's team. That was because Yun Jian's team completed their missions so quickly that it was almost illogical. It was an irrefutable fact. However, Team Monarch's mission and how they completed their missions were not leaked to the outside world at all. On the other hand, Battling Dragon Squad was different. The reason why Battling Dragon Squad was so famous was because they had recently completed a major mission, infiltrating the underground black market and capturing a high-ranking member of the underground black market. That was just an achievement. Although it did not sound as impressive as Team Monarch, Yu Luo and the rest went through many twists and turns when they infiltrated the underground black market to arrest the high-ranking member. They had disguised themselves and snuck into the underground black market. Later on, they had a conflict with the people of the black market. In the end, they had suffered countless injuries of varying sizes. That was how they completed their mission. Anyone in the military would be able to tell the story. What about Yun Jian's team, Team Monarch? What did they go through when they recovered the antiques stolen by the international god? Even Yu Fengqing's Champ Squad and Flying Dragon Squad, who went on the mission with them, probably didn't know about this, right? Therefore, Yu Luo and the rest automatically assumed that Yun Jian's team was just lucky and did not have any real capability. However, what Yu Luo and the rest did not know was that Yun Jian had personally annihilated a foreign gang during her first mission. However, it was Gu Junjian who suppressed the news to prevent it from spreading. It was only natural that Yu Luo and the rest did not hear about it. Therefore, when Yun Jian's team was about to catch up, Yu Luo and the rest only thought that they had good physiques. Yu Luo and the rest thought that they were skilled but had poor physiques. Therefore, when they were about to reach the last few steps, Yu Luo had two boys who were weaker and slower stop to block Yun Jian's team. Yu Luo and the rest who were the fastest sprinted to the starting point with the red flags. It was a risky move, Yu Luo's final trump card. Yu Luo, on the other hand, thought that the boys would be able to drag Yun Jian's team down to the finish line if they managed to get a hold of Yun Jian's team's sleeves. Yu Luo looked at dragons as Yu Luo's team's team monarch, Yu Luo's team's team members team Yu Luo's team. From afar, Gu Junjian, Ai Guoxuan, and Chief Yuan could clearly see the two boys pouncing on Yun Jian, who was the first to descend through the bushes, intending to hold on to Yun Jian and the rest's sleeves to stop them from moving forward. Yun Jian looked like she was prepared for this. Her red lips were curled up, but the moment the two boys pounced on her, she leaped into the air from the stairs. Her legs seemed to be held in place by springs as she kicked both boys' stomachs. The two boys could not react in time. At the same time, both boys were kicked to the muddy ground by Yun Jian. Yun Jian, on the other hand, did a 360-degree somersault in the air. Just like in martial arts movies, she landed on the ground steadily after the somersault and continued sprinting forward without any hesitation. The scene shocked Chief Yuan and the rest who were standing afar. Chapter 526. While Yu Luo was still in a daze, Yun Jian ran past Yu Luo, her long hair swaying in the wind. Chu Ning and the other 5 were used to Yun Jian's skills. Although they were more or less impressed by Yun Jian's skills, they were already used to it, so they caught up with her after a slight pause. Apart from Chu Ning, who cursed Lin Quan, Lu Shiyun and the rest did not make a sound since the start of the run. They were fully prepared. Therefore, just as Yun Jian overtook the stunned Yu Luo and the rest, Jiang Weiwei was the second to do the same. Then Chu Ning and the others followed suit one after another. Just as her feet touched the ground, Yun Jian began to pick up speed. She had been running at an average speed earlier, so Chu Ning and the rest had been running at the same speed as her. Therefore, the 7 of them picked up their pace the moment they landed on flat ground. By the time Yu Luo and the rest reacted, cursing and running after them, Yun Jian's team had already begun their final sprint. Even Chu Xiangnan, who ran at the slowest speed among Yun Jian's team, had overtaken Yu Luo and the rest and was running in front. The difference was that Chu Xiangnan still had an endless supply of energy in him, while Yu Luo and the rest were already exhausted. Now that Yun Jian's team had overtaken them, they could not muster any energy to chase after them. The result was decided. Yun Jian's team monarch was sprinting to the finish line with all 7 of them at the same speed. The rule that Chief Yuan had set was that only the top 7 would be chosen. In other words, the team with the most people in the top 7 would win. As for Yun Jian and her team of 7, they occupied all the top 7 spots. Not a single person from Battling Dragons could make it into the top 7. The result shocked Chief Yuan, Gu Junjian, Ai Guoxuan, and everyone else in the military who were present. By the time Yu Luo reached the finish line, everything was set in stone. Yu Luo slumped to the ground in disappointment, gritting her teeth. It was over. Their Battling Dragon squad no longer had a chance. There were 2 rounds of PK between Team Monarch and Team Battling Dragon. However, the prerequisite was that Battling Dragons had to win the first round, which was the mountain climbing competition. Otherwise, they would not be qualified for the second round. Ha! Good, this is really exciting. After Chief Yuan recovered from his shock, he guffawed and looked at Gu Junjian approvingly, praising, "Old Gu, your team monarch is amazing. Amazing! I've never seen such a powerful leader in my life." The leader was naturally Yun Jian. After all, Yun Jian had always been the leader of the group. If not for Yun Jian's leadership, Team Monarch would have fallen into Battling Dragon's trap. Chief, our Yun Jian is amazing. Heh, how can battling dragons compare to us? Chu Ning smiled delightedly but boldly struck up a conversation with Chief Yuan. To be honest, Yun Jian had considered everything during the 5-day training. She had only asked Chu Ning and the rest to memorize the map of human organs on the first day. She had been preparing them to improve their physical fitness every day after that. What impressed Chu Ning and the rest even more was that Yun Jian had mentioned that PK was not necessarily a competition of strength. If it was a competition of physical fitness, they would have to improve their physical fitness apart from their killer moves. As expected, Yun Jian's guess was spot on. They had learned their killer moves and practiced their physical fitness. Now that they had won the first round of the competition, they would not have to compete with Battling Dragon in the second round. Chapter 527. It's true that battling dragons can't compare to you guys. Chief Yuan agreed with Chu Ning. He was in high spirits and admired a talent like Yun Jian, so when Chu Ning, who was in the same team as Yun Jian, spoke up, he agreed with her out of habit. Chief Yuan was a man of his words. He was a man of his word and was a man of his word. He was also carefree and did not hold back at all. Therefore, he was not afraid of offending AI Guishuan or battling dragons when he directly pointed out that battling dragons could not compare to Yun Jian's team of 7 in front of AI Guishuan and the rest of battling dragons. After all, Chief Yuan was AI Guishuan and the rest superior. How could Yu Luo take it when her superior pointed out that battling dragons could not compare to Yun Jian's team? Although Yu Luo wasn't the captain of battling dragons, she was their leader. Yun Jian was the one who led Team Monarch earlier. One could say that Yu Luo was Yun Jian's rival. To say that battling dragons could not compare to Yun Jian's Team Monarch was indirectly saying that she was not as good as Yun Jian. Yu Luo hated it when people said that she was not as good as others. Although Yun Jian did not say that she was not as good as Yu Luo, it had a different meaning when it came out of Chief Yuan's mouth. Even when Yun Jian said that she was not as good as Yu Luo was not as angry as hearing it from Chief Yuan. AI Guishuan was already glaring at Yu Luo and the rest from the side. He had spent all his effort on them, but they had lost to him? We're all military men. Winning or losing isn't important. What's most important is harmony. That's all for the PK this time. All of you should work harder and keep up the good work. Chief Yuan patted Gujunjian and AI Guishuan's shoulders with a grin. With that, he put on his coat and found an excuse to leave. Someone like Chief Yuan naturally had a lot to deal with. Once Chief Yuan left, AI Guishuan snorted at Gujunjian and yelled angrily at battling dragons to leave. Let's go. Yu Luo and the rest glared at Yun Jian and the rest as well. In his eyes, it was obvious that this matter was not over. Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan glared back at Yu Luo and the rest until Yu Luo and the rest stormed off. Seriously, who are they? Chu Xiangnan yelled angrily as he pointed at the backs of AI Guishuan, Yu Luo, and the rest. But we're lucky we won. Jiang Weiwei flashed a rare smile and shifted her gaze to Yun Jian. She had looked down on Yun Jian as well. But now, Yun Jian was strong alone. She could lead the entire team. You guys have kept your positions in the advanced special forces. Gu Junjian breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled kindly and looked at the group, speaking first, "Let's head back to the hotel later. We'll stay in F Province tonight according to the original plan. You guys can go shopping in the downtown area of F Province tonight. Officer Gu, would you like to come with us?" Chu Ning cheered happily. Then, she turned to look at Gu Junjian and invited him. "I'm already so old, why would I want to go shopping? Go ahead, don't come back too late." Gu Junjian was kind to the group. He was fierce when he lectured them, but he would still let them relax when they needed to. "I'm not going either." Yun Jian pursed her lips and stretched lazily. Chapter 528. In the end, Yun Jian was dragged out by Chu Ning and the rest. Chu Ning even said that they had won the competition so easily today because of Yun Jian. If it were not for Yun Jian, how could they have won the competition so quickly? In the end, Yun Jian could not stand Chu Ning's pestering and went with her. F Province was indeed the most convenient seaside town in Z country for trade. It was crowned with the title of City of the Sea. Even the largest downtown area in F Province, the street named Upper Street, was a treasure trove of crowded people and vehicles. F Province was the model of the largest area in the country. Here, ordinary families could already live a well-off life. Therefore, it was not rare to see cars on the streets here. All in all, compared to Longmen City, this place in F Province was a few notches higher. Although Chuning usually looked wild, she was a proper girl. Therefore, she began shopping for clothes and shoes stores as soon as she stepped onto the streets. Lu Shiyun and the rest were patient as they waited for Chuning to try on one piece of clothing after another. Yun Jian, on the other hand, leaned against the pillar in the store and closed her eyes to rest. Let's go over there and have a look. Just as Chuning was about to walk towards a trendy shoe store with a large pile of newly bought clothes for Chu Xiangnan to carry, Chu Xiangnan stopped her in his tracks. Chu Xiangnan could not hold it in any longer and called out to Chuning helplessly, "Hey, Chuning, that's enough. Look at me, I can't carry it anymore. Are you going to put the stuff on my head if you buy more? Also, aren't you embarrassed to make everyone wait for you to buy things?" Chuning liked to let Chu Xiangnan carry her new clothes and shoes when she picked them out. Hehe. Chuning looked at him awkwardly and pursed her lips before smiling apologetically. "I couldn't help myself." "So, where are we going next?" Chuning asked with a grin. "I heard that there's a martial arts school in F Province. It's the biggest one in Country Z. At the same time, it's equipped with the most advanced equipment. Shall we go there and have a look?" Fong Xiaoran, who had been quiet, suggested. "Is there really such a good place?" "Hee, then of course we have to go and take a look." As soon as Chu Xiangnan heard this, he immediately agreed. As he spoke, Chu Xiangnan also asked for everyone's opinion. "What about you guys? Do you guys want to go? I think it's feasible." Lu Shiyun was also very interested. Then, they all felt that there was no problem and turned to ask Yun Jian for her opinion. "I'm going," Yun Jian replied with a single word. "Let's go then." Chu Xiangnan was the first to run forward with his hands full of Chuning's shopping bags. After asking around, they arrived at F Province's most famous dojo, Yongchun Dojo. The Eternal Spring Hall had been located here for 300 to 400 years, and the hall master of the Eternal Spring Hall was said to be the 5th-generation successor of Eternal Spring. His strength was quite astonishing. Furthermore, the Yongchun Pavilion had a very high reputation in the area. Yun Jian and the others casually asked passers-by about the location of the Yongchun Pavilion. Following the directions of the passers-by, Yun Jian and the others quickly arrived at the main entrance of the Yongchun Dojo. The main entrance of the Yongchun Dojo was at least 10 meters tall. It was indeed not a joke to say that it was the biggest martial arts school in Country Z. Chapter 529. The receptionist's polite greeting was refreshing to Chuning and the others. "No, it's our first time here," Chu Xiangnan said to the receptionist before anyone else could. The long-term members were the kind of people who often came to the Yongchun Pavilion and had a membership card in hand. "Would you like to apply for a long-term membership card?" The receptionist asked again. "No need." This time, it was Yun Jian who refused. They would not stay in F Province for a long time. They only came to F Province this time because of the challenge from Battling Dragon Squad. In short, Yun Jian and the others did not need the card. Even if they applied for it now, they would not be able to use it the next time they came here. "Okay." The receptionist nodded and registered Yun Jian and the others. There was a lot of equipment for practicing martial arts in the dojo. There were also specialized martial arts instructors in the dojo to teach the students. Therefore, the dojo was the first choice for young people to practice martial arts. Of course, there was no shortage of young people who learned martial arts to show off. The fees in the dojo were based on the time period. There were also long-term members who paid tuition fees according to the semester or year. For people like Yun Jian and the others who would only come here once, they would naturally pay by the hour. This was the rule of the Yongchun Dojo. As for other dojos, their fees might be different from the Yongchun Dojo. After discussing, Lu Shiyun and the others decided to stay in the dojo for 2 hours. Chu Xiangnan was a rich man and his family did not lack money. When it was time to pay, Chu Xiangnan immediately paid everyone's fees first. Knowing that Chu Xiangnan did not care about the money, the others did not reject his kindness. After the registration, Yun Jian followed the 6 of them past the front desk and walked into a small semicircular door in an antique building. When they were at the front desk earlier, they could not see the interior of the dojo. Behind the front desk, there was a large screen that blocked the inside of the dojo. They could only hear the sound of the young people training in the dojo. As soon as Yun Jian and the others entered the museum, the first thing they saw was a large mirror that had been transformed from a wall in front of them. On the left side of the museum, there was a large red Wu character. In the middle of the hall stood a large group of teenagers who were about the same age as Yun Jian. Standing in front of the teenagers was a martial arts instructor in his 40s. He had a square face and single eyelids. He was practicing martial arts. There were many hanging sandbags in the hall, as well as some equipment that would be used during martial arts practice. When he saw Yun Jian's group of 7, the martial arts instructor who was standing in front of the group of teenagers immediately stopped what he was doing. He looked at Yun Jian's group of 7 and asked, "Are you new here?" Chu Xiangnan, who was standing close to the martial arts instructor, nodded blankly. "My surname is Su. You can call me Coach Su." Coach Su shouted. Then he motioned to Yun Jian and the others. "Come here and follow me." As soon as Coach Su finished speaking, Chu Xiangnan and Chu Ning ran over excitedly. Yun Jian followed them and stood next to the group of teenagers in a corner. Learning was something that Yun Jian paid great attention to in her previous life. Coach Su was undoubtedly the owner of Yongchun Dojo, who was also known as the 5th-generation successor of Yongchun. After teaching a set of fist techniques, Coach Su asked everyone to sit down in a circle. "Have you all learned this set of fist techniques? Now is the time to test your fist techniques. Later, come up one by one and spar with me in pairs," Coach Su said to everyone with his arms crossed in front of his chest. As soon as Coach Su finished speaking, a shout came from the entrance. "Uncle, we're here." The rather familiar female voice made Yun Jian, who was sitting in a circle with the rest of the group, feel her eyes twitch. Chapter 530. A group of people walked in through the small semicircular entrance that Yun Jian and the rest had entered through earlier. Leading them was Yu Luo, whom they had met in the military, and the 6 people beside her were members of Battling Dragons. When the plump Lin Quan walked in through the semicircular entrance, he was stuck for a moment. Over 200 kilograms of fat was indeed shocking. However, Lin Quan soon came in through the entrance, all of them following behind Yu Luo. Yun Jian had clearly noticed that Yu Luo had called Coach Su uncle earlier. Coach Su was Yu Luo's uncle? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. This was probably the situation they were in now. Yun Jian's lips twitched as she glanced at Chu Ning and the rest, who had noticed Yu Luo and the rest as well. However, since Yun Jian and the rest were sitting among the youths, Yu Luo and the rest had not noticed them yet. However, Chu Ning and the rest did not look too happy. Gu Junjian and Ai Guixuan were not on good terms, which meant that Yu Luo and the rest were destined to be enemies when they ran into each other in the future. Moreover, Yu Luo and the rest had to resort to underhanded means to win when the 2 teams were in a PK. As a result, Yun Jian and her friends disliked them even more. "It's Miss Yu. Our Coach Su is her uncle. Also, I heard that Miss Yu is a candidate for the Advanced Special Forces. Do you know Battling Dragons who arrested a high-ranking member of a black market gang some time ago? She's one of them." Once Yu Luo and the rest appeared, the youths who were sitting in a circle on the floor immediately started discussing excitedly. They looked as if they had seen their idols. In fact, Battling Dragons formed by Yu Luo and the rest had become the idol of the youths in F Province. Be it in school or in society, everyone was talking about how amazing Battling Dragons was. They had such achievements at such a young age. Moreover, Yu Luo and the rest did not hide what they had done at all. They would even exaggerate it so that everyone would know about their achievements. That was their ultimate goal. Therefore, Yu Luo and the rest had become idols in many people's hearts. Advanced Special Forces candidate? Wow, how amazing! Someone immediately chimed in, and there was no lack of envy and admiration in their words. Yu Luo and everyone else in Battling Dragons held their heads high as they felt the crowd's admiration. Yu Luo's lips curled into a smile as she boldly scanned the entire place. She looked at the group of youths sitting on the ground with disdain as if she was looking at ants. Coach Su looked at his niece, Yu Luo. Before he could say anything, he saw his niece sweep her gaze across the group of people. Her gaze suddenly locked onto a slender figure. Yu Luo pointed at the slim figure and exclaimed, "You, why are you here?" After being called out, Yun Jian did not flinch. She casually put her hands in her trouser pockets and slowly stood up. Yun Jian looked straight at Yu Luo. Seeing Yu Luo's murderous glare, Yun Jian merely smiled and threatened, "So, why can't I be here?" Chapter 5:31. Xiao Luo, she's a guest. How can you do this? Coach Su frowned and said when he saw Yu Luo pointing at the door to chase Yun Jian away. Coach Su's impression of his niece had always been that she was immature. However, it was undeniable that Yu Luo was very talented. She could pick up any hint he gave her in martial arts. Therefore, no matter how much Coach Su disliked Yu Luo, he still took her in as his disciple. Yu Luo pointed at Yun Jian and yelled at her as soon as she entered. This was his dojo after all, so even Coach Su could not help but reprimand Yu Luo. "Uncle, she has a grudge against me. Stay out of this." Yu Luo already saw Yun Jian as her enemy and hated her to the core. Therefore, she did not hold back even in front of everyone. Yu Luo then led a few members of Battling Dragons to Yun Jian's side. She pointed at Yun Jian and taunted, "All right, you're not leaving, are you? But we're no match for you in the military. Do you dare to fight me now?" Coach Su's eyelids twitched at Yu Luo's blatant taunt. He was very clear about his niece's ability. Other things aside, Yu Luo was quite powerful in terms of strength alone. Even Coach Yu had to admit that it was only a matter of time before his niece surpassed him in strength. "Come on. Let's fight. Let's fight. Let's fight." It was a rare opportunity to witness the ability of the legendary Yu Luo from Battling Dragons. The group of youths were all excited and cheered excitedly. When Yun Jian stood up, Chu Ning and the others were already standing behind Yun Jian. At this moment, Yun Jian was looking straight at Yu Luo without flinching in the face of the provocation from the group led by Yu Luo. "You want me to fight you?" Yun Jian raised her voice. Yu Luo listened to the jeers around her and her uncle Coach Su's worried face, afraid that she would hurt Yun Jian. She replied arrogantly to Yun Jian's words, "Yes, do you dare? You don't deserve to fight me." Yun Jian smiled contemptuously. She glanced at Yu Luo and waved at Chu Xiangnan and the others, indicating that they should leave with her. It wasn't that Yun Jian didn't dare, but that Yu Luo didn't deserve it. Just as Yun Jian was about to walk around Yu Luo and leave, Yu Luo suddenly stopped her. Yu Luo was enraged by Yun Jian's words. She stopped Yun Jian and said in a frivolous tone, "Do you think our dojo is a place you can come and go as you please?" Yun Jian's sharp eyes flashed at Yu Luo's words. "Wow, Miss Yu is so domineering. She's indeed my idol. I admire her so much." A guy looked at Yu Luo with admiration. "I'm about to become her fan." Another boy said exaggeratedly while covering his face. The atmosphere was at its most tense moment. Just when the atmosphere between the two sides was extremely stiff, a group of people suddenly rushed in through the semicircular door. This group of people who had just rushed in were all dressed in black, and their faces were all covered with black veils. What was more frightening was that they all had pistols in their hands. The group of youths sitting in a circle on the ground panicked when they saw them. They were scared half to death by the group of people who barged into the dojo with guns. Coach Su, Yu Luo, and the others were shocked by the sudden turn of events. Chapter 5:32. A hijacking. At that moment, the same image appeared in everyone's minds. It was a man in black who had entered the room with a gun. Could it be an assassin organization? Yuluo, who had been aggressive earlier, turned pale with fright when she saw the armed men in black. Everyone in Battling Dragon's expression changed instantly. No one had expected such a turn of events. Instructor Su frowned. He was obviously shocked by the turn of events. He had never expected his dojo to be invaded by a group of unknown criminals. Although he did not know their intentions, he could tell from their tone that they were up to no good. However, it was the first time the group of youths in the dojo had encountered such a situation. In everyone's opinion, this kind of danger could only happen in movies. Since when had they encountered such a frightening situation in real life? Therefore, all the youths present screamed uncontrollably in fear. Yun Jian's gaze sharpened. She did not expect the men in black to suddenly barge into the dojo. Instructor Su gulped. He was the first to realize that something was amiss when one of the men in black pointed a gun at him and threatened him. "Quiet, everyone quiet down." Instructor Su yelled at the crowd. However, none of the youths present had ever encountered such a situation. They were all running away in fear. Who would listen to Instructor Su? Bang, bang, bang. The man in black was enraged. He grabbed his gun and fired at the three youths who were running away in all directions. At the sound of the gunshots, three youths fell to the ground immediately. Then, a stream of blood flowed out from the three living creatures. They were dead. Seeing this scene, everyone was so scared that they shut their mouths and found a corner to hide. "Run again. This will be your fate." The man in black with the gun did not seem to realize that he had just killed 3 people. He smiled cruelly as if human lives were worthless. His eerie eyes sent chills down everyone's spines. Even Yuluo, who was full of vigor earlier, restrained her aura and dared not make a sound. Beep, beep, beep. At that moment, the sound of police sirens came from outside the dojo. It was obvious that the sirens were aimed at the men in black. Everyone quickly realized that they might have become hostages. This group of black-clothed men could very well be the repeat offenders of some criminal organization. After all, how could a normal person carry a pistol? Seeing that no one dared to make a sound, the man in black swept the gun in his hand across the crowd again and shouted, "Put your hands on your heads and squat down." Everyone was so scared that their legs trembled, but they didn't dare to disobey the black-clothed man's words. They all crouched down with their hands on their heads. Even Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, and the others did as they were told. After all, under such circumstances, if he didn't do as he was told, he would be the one to die. A head-on clash wouldn't work. Yuluo and the others, including Coach Su, dared not say anything. These black-clothed men had just killed 3 people. 3 human lives had been taken just like that. But no one dared to make a sound because everyone was afraid of the gun in the man's hand. Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She followed the crowd and squatted down, holding her head. Before the situation was clear, it was best to remain silent. After everyone had squatted down with their hands on their heads, the police's loudspeaker was heard from outside the dojo. "Those inside, put down the hostages and surrender immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless." Hostages. This group of black-clothed men was obviously a criminal organization. Chapter 5:33. After suppressing everyone at the scene, the man in black who had shot and killed the 3 youths turned to look at the man in black standing beside him. He said in English, "Jay, go out and tell those stupid policemen that if they dare to come in, there are almost 100 people in this martial arts club. They can forget about leaving this place alive." The man in black called Jay nodded and left after receiving the order. Yun Jian lowered her eyes and pursed her lips. From the way the men in black spoke and behaved, they were foreigners. The faces of the men in black were covered with a black veil, only revealing a pair of dark eyes. Hence, no one could tell that they were foreigners at first glance. Yun Jian quickly came to a conclusion. The reason the men in black had rushed to the dojo to kidnap them was because there were too many people here. In the dojo, there were almost 100 students under Coach Su alone. If the men in black wanted to escape from the police, it would be better to take a group of hostages than 1 or 2 hostages. If they took 1 or 2 hostages, the police might even send someone over to rescue them. However, if they took a group of hostages and the police wanted to rescue them, it would cause a huge commotion. Moreover, if all the hostages died, it would cause a huge commotion in society. Hence, even if the police wanted to rescue them, they would have to think twice. The man in black called Jay soon returned from outside. He stood in front of the man who had just killed the 3 youths and was also the leader of the men in black. He said to him in English, "The policemen are scared, but they didn't retreat. We should inform the headquarters and ask for help." From the sound of it, this group of black-clothed men was still organized. Yun Jian stared at the floor. Yu Luo and the rest were so scared that they did not make a sound. So what if they were advanced special forces candidates? They were just candidates, but the other party had guns. When the black-clothed man called Hertz heard this, he took out a mobile phone from his pocket and dialed a number. No one dared to make a sound. It was eerily quiet. The only sound that could be heard was the beeping of the phone, which resounded in the surroundings. There were also the corpses of the 3 youths who had just been killed, causing everyone present to tremble in fear. Everyone was trembling uncontrollably in fear and horror. Facing such a horrible criminal, even Coach Su did not dare to make a sound. He hugged his head and squatted on the ground. Even if he moved, he was afraid that the group of men in black would see him and kill him like how they killed the 3 youths. At this moment, the call went through. The man in black named Hercules spoke into the phone. "I'm Hercules. I'm on a mission in Country Z. A group of police officers found me and surrounded a martial arts club. Quickly come to my aid." "Got it." A crisp sound came from the other end of the phone, and then the call was hung up. After he hung up the phone, he put it back into his pocket. Just as he put it into his pocket, the back of his tightly wrapped hand was suddenly exposed. Yun Jian happened to catch a glimpse of the back of Hector's hand. He saw that there was a golden rose imprinted on the back of Hertz's hand. The mark of the rose seemed to have been deeply imprinted with something. The golden flower looked particularly conspicuous. Yun Jian's pupils suddenly shrank. Chapter 5:34. Every member of an assassin or secret agent organization would have their own unique mark. The Kosha mercenaries had a skull mark. The Inferno Ring was an assassin organization second only to the Enhun and Kosha mercenaries. The reason why Yun Jian knew that the mark on the back of his hand was the Inferno Ring was because she had done her research on it. Ever since she found out that the organization that killed her brother in her previous life was the Inferno Ring, an assassin organization second only to the Enhun and Kosha mercenaries, Yun Jian had been collecting information on the Inferno Ring. Now that her brother was back, Yun Jian would not stop there. She had always been a vengeful person who would repay a debt of gratitude. She was very protective and would not allow anyone to challenge her bottom line. Her brother was her bottom line, and the Inferno Ring was the needle that had touched her bottom line. Previously, Yun Jian had not taken action against the Inferno Ring because she had not gotten rid of the old Kosha mercenaries. With the Kosha mercenaries' current situation, it was not wise to go against the Inferno Ring. If they were not careful, they could be wiped out by the Inferno Ring. Now that the old Kosha mercenaries had been eliminated, the mercenary group was still undergoing major changes. After all, the old men's influence was not to be underestimated. Snake, Lizard and Tiger. Leopard had been very busy recently. Going against the Inferno Ring under such circumstances would not benefit the Kosha mercenaries. That was why Yun Jian had not taken action. Now that her brother was back, the image of her brother before he died in her previous life was deeply imprinted in Yun Jian's heart. She would make the Inferno Ring pay the price. Perhaps Yun Jian now knew that the Kosha mercenaries could not go against the Inferno Ring, but since the Inferno Ring had sent themselves to her doorstep, she would not hold back. The Inferno Ring dared to hurt her brother, so she would give them a New Year's gift in return. After Hertz received the call from the organization and hid his phone in his pocket, Yun Jian suddenly stood up slowly. She stared at Hertz and the men in black from the Inferno Ring with a murderous look in her eyes. At the same time, Yun Jian stood up in front of everyone's fearful eyes. She looked at Hertz and said with a tinge of anger, "You are from the Inferno Ring?" Did she want to die? Everyone present cursed in their hearts. Originally, the group of black-clothed men had gradually shifted their attention away, which meant that the people present would not be killed like the 3 youths who had just died. In the end, Yun Jian suddenly stood up and yelled at he who had just killed someone in a furious tone. Was she tired of living? Or what? And now, the group of black-clothed men had turned their attention to them. She wanted to die, but she didn't want to implicate them. Yu Luo watched in shock as Yun Jian stood up. Coach Su also looked at Yun Jian in fear. Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, and the rest were also puzzled, but they looked at her worriedly. Everyone present turned to look at Yun Jian. Hertz and the men in black shifted their attention to her as well. Little girl? Hi, you want to die? Hertz said to Yun Jian in Mandarin. He raised his gun, intending to kill Yun Jian with one shot. Answer me, are you from the Inferno Ring? Yun Jian raised her voice and shouted. She suddenly raised her voice and asked Hertz to pull the trigger. Hertz's hand that was about to point the gun at Yun Jian paused. Since you know who we are, you must die. Hertz suddenly laughed. He was about to pull the trigger and point the gun at Yun Jian. I'll return the same sentence to you. You from the Inferno Ring must die. Yun Jian's eyes turned sharp as she said that. There was a flash of light. The people present who did not fully understand felt their hearts clench tightly. Chapter 5:35. Hertz's hand that was about to pull the trigger trembled when Yun Jian's murderous aura flashed across his face. Hertz was an assassin from the Inferno Ring. Although he was not on the international ranking of assassins and secret agents, he was quite famous internationally. As an assassin from the Inferno Ring, when had he ever been threatened by an unknown little girl like this? If he was threatened by a little girl today, wouldn't he become a laughingstock if word got out? Hence, when Hertz looked at Yun Jian again, his expression turned vicious. Interesting. I didn't expect such an interesting little girl like you to exist in such a lousy place. Hertz was in no hurry to kill Yun Jian. He laughed maniacally. His rough voice with standard Chinese pronunciation sent chills down everyone's spines. No matter what everyone thought, he had just killed 3 people. He had killed 3 living beings. This was an ironclad fact. He killed people like they were cutting grass. Hence, everyone present felt a sense of resistance and fear towards Hertz. Almost everyone was disgusted by Yun Jian's actions. Yun Jian's actions had attracted the attention of the men in black. However, at this moment, everyone realized one thing: they were done for. The men in black had guns. No matter how powerful Yun Jian was, could she be faster than bullets? Dream on. Yun Jian. Chu Ning watched worriedly as Yun Jian stood up to face Hertz. Although she was also terrified, she wanted to take the risk of reaching out to pull Yun Jian away from Hertz and his men's attention. No one dared to make a sound in front of a gun. Yun Jian avoided Chu Ning's pull. Almost as soon as Hertz said that she was interesting, she slowly walked toward Hertz and his men under the horrified gazes of Yu Luo and the others. TSK, since you're asking for it, don't blame me then. It was rare for Hertz to meet such an interesting person. He cracked his neck and laughed weirdly. Then he raised his gun with a sinister smile. Hertz didn't kill Yun Jian because he swore that the girl in front of him wasn't a threat to him at all. When Yun Jian walked towards him, he felt that although this young girl was interesting, there was no need to keep a disobedient person around. Bang! Under the panicked gazes of Yu Luo, Coach Su, and the group of teenagers, Hertz fired a shot at Yun Jian. This shot caused the hearts of everyone present to tighten. Chu Ning and the others watched as Yun Jian walked towards he. She had no intention of dodging the muzzle of the gun, so they were even more terrified. In the next second, Hull fired his pistol. Chu Ning and the rest were shocked. When they regained their senses, they screamed, "Yun Jian!" Could it be that something really happened? Yun Jian was so powerful, but no matter how fast she was, could she be faster than a bullet? Dead. The scene of Yun Jian being shot in the head and blood splattering everywhere immediately appeared in everyone's mind. Everyone was terrified. However, all they saw was, just as He Jie was laughing, anticipating that Yun Jian would be killed by him on the spot, he pulled the trigger. The moment the bullet flew out of its shell, Yun Jian threw herself to the ground at the speed of a racing car and dodged the bullet by a hair's breadth. However, as she dodged Hertz's shot and threw herself to the ground, a spinning butterfly knife flew out from her arms. Hertz, who was standing far away, was obviously caught off guard. By the time Hertz reacted and hurriedly dodged, the butterfly knife had already shot into his left eyeball. Ah! Hertz howled instantly. Everyone looked over and saw that Hertz's left eyeball had been pierced deeply by the butterfly knife. The eyeball exploded and blood splattered everywhere. Seeing this, everyone present, including Yu Luo and Coach Su, was completely shocked and terrified. Chapter 5:36. Everyone was stunned by this sudden turn of events. In their opinion, a person who could dodge bullets should be a deity, right? How could an ordinary person dodge bullets? However, Yun Jian's actions just now had everyone panicking. While she dodged the bullets, she threw a flying dagger at Hertz's eyeball at the same time. His eyeball exploded. Such a cruel method. And the speed at which Yun Jian threw the flying dagger was so accurate. Not a single bit off. How could everyone present not be dumbfounded? Yu Luo and the rest had their mouths agape as they watched Yun Jian's strange moves in shock. Coach Su and the group of teenagers present were also completely dumbfounded. As for Chu Ning and the rest, although they had some understanding of Yun Jian's ability, Yun Jian's move just now completely overturned their understanding of Yun Jian. What was ability? That was what was considered ability. Ouch! Hertz squatted down slowly with his left eye covered. He let out a heart-wrenching scream, and the group of men in black behind him pointed their guns at Yun Jian. However, after Hertz's shooting and Yun Jian's backhand flying dagger, the men in black did not dare to make a move easily. Yun Jian stood in front of the group of men in black. She did not move an inch and was not afraid of the guns pointed at her. Kill her! Kill her! Hertz covered his blown eyeball. He did not pull the butterfly knife out easily. Instead, he endured the tearing pain and spoke to the other men in black. You've dirted my knife. Just as Hertz stared at Yun Jian with hatred in his single eye and covered his blown left eye with one hand, Yun Jian's faint voice was heard again. Yu Luo and the others were struck with fear again when they saw how Yun Jian could still spit out such words calmly in the face of the guns pointed at her. At this moment, they realized something. This Yun Jian was not human at all. These men in black were criminals. Criminals with pistols in their hands. As for Yun Jian, she was not afraid at all. Not only was she not afraid, but she even retaliated by blinding one of the criminal's eyes. She even dared to say that he had dirted her knife. Did she not know that this would agitate the other party? If the guns in the hands of these men in black went off accidentally, everyone present would not be able to leave alive. Kill this little girl. Go to hell. It was Hertz's first time being humiliated like this. He could only stare at Yun Jian with a single eye while his mouth was already growling menacingly. Hertz's subordinate, who was Jay's head, nodded. After that, Jay raised his gun and aimed it at Yun Jian. Bang! Jay fired a shot. However, the moment Jay fired, he shifted the gun aimed at Yun Jian and aimed it at Hertz's heart. Bang! With a gunshot, Hertz was killed on the spot by Jia. The moment he fell, Hertz looked at his subordinate Jia in shock. He could not believe it, but he used the last bit of strength in his life to yell at Jia, I'll kill her and take over your position. So, Hertz, please die. Jay looked at Hertz mercilessly as he fell to the ground. Hertz fell to the ground and died on the spot. Everyone present was shocked again. This group of people would actually kill each other. Yun Jian only narrowed her eyes, but the murderous intent in her eyes was even more obvious. Hertz was not as courageous as Jay. Chapter 5:37. To everyone, Jay, who had killed his comrade, was even scarier than Hertz. How could he kill his comrade? What kind of heart did he have to be so cold-blooded? Yun Jian. Chu Ning was anxious for Yun Jian. She was afraid that something would happen to Yun Jian. She was so anxious that her heart was trembling. It's okay. Yun Jian is so powerful. She can handle it herself. We can't go out. Otherwise, we'll be a burden to her and mess up her plans. Chu Xiangnan did not know when he grabbed Chuning's hand. He patted it to comfort her. Afraid that she would be a burden to Yunjian, Chuning nodded at Chu Xiangnan. However, Chuning was sizing up Yunjian from afar. On the other end, Yunjian stood where she was and stared at Jie with her seductive eyes. She did not make a sound after hearing Jie's brazen words just now. Jie did not dare to act rashly. After all, Yunjian's display of skill just now was too impressive. Hertz's shot was something that even a third-rate assassin could barely dodge or even get hit. However, Yunjian had dodged it. More importantly, when Yunjian dodged Hertz's shot, she threw out a butterfly knife. The butterfly knife accurately pierced Hertz's left eye. To be honest, if Yunjian had not pierced Hertz's left eye and caused Hertz to fly into a rage, Jie would not have had the chance to kill Hertz and replace him. Yunjian was not enraged by Jie's words. Her expression did not change at all. While Jie was on guard, Yunjian suddenly raised her right leg. Jie was shocked by Yunjian's movement and immediately became alert. He did not forget that Hertz's left eye was pierced by Yunjian because he had underestimated Yunjian. This young girl, just based on the previous few points, she was not someone to be trifled with. Yunjian, whom Jie thought was a trick, walked toward the dead Hertz while Jie, the men in black, and Yu Luo and the rest looked on suspiciously. When Jie saw Yunjian walking toward him, he subconsciously moved aside and gave way to Hertz's body. Yunjian's skills just now had all of them spooked. Yunjian walked to Hertz's body and stepped on his body mercilessly before everyone's eyes. She then pulled out her butterfly knife from Hertz's left eye. Yunjian reached into her pocket and took out a few pieces of tissue to wipe the butterfly knife on her hand naturally. So filthy, Yunjian commented faintly. At that moment, Yunjian was facing Jie and the rest. Jie wanted to use this opportunity to shoot Yunjian. "I hope your blood doesn't dirty my knife," Yunjian said in her angelic voice while facing Jie and the rest. "What?" When Jie heard that, his hand that was holding the gun froze. After wiping the butterfly knife, Yunjian turned around slowly. In the next second, Yu Luo and the rest saw something flash before their eyes. She moved. Yunjian's figure flashed. She fell and rolled. In an instant she was beside Jie and the men in black. A massacre ensued. Her silhouette was like a specter. Wherever she passed, a man in black would fall to the ground before he could react in time. She was a true killer. She killed people like flies. Yunjian weaved through the crowd, leaving no survivors wherever the butterfly knife in her hand touched. Jie only recovered from his shock when all the men in black behind him fell to the ground. Chapter 5:38. The girl's tall and slender figure became clear at that moment. In the dark dojo, Yunjian's tall and slender figure and her long, flowing ponytail stood out. Yunjian, on the other hand, struck fear and shock into Yu Luo and the rest. She had killed someone. Once she attacked, the men in black did not even know how they died. Could this be her true strength? Yu Luo, Lin Quan, and the rest felt a surge of fear and shock in their hearts. Although they were advanced special forces, if they were asked to kill someone, it would be a completely different matter from carrying out a mission. Although these criminals deserved to be killed. These criminals had killed people in the dojo and threatened the police. As an advanced special forces soldier, Yunjian had the right to execute these criminals on the spot. However, a normal person, especially a third-year middle school student like Yunjian, did not show any fear after killing these criminals with her own hands. Instead, she pressed on. If it had been Yu Luo was sure that her legs would have turned to jelly under the other party's threat. Yu Luo's battling dragons was rumored to be powerful, but they had a bottom line after all. However, Yunjian crossed the bottom line again and again. She was so mysterious that no one could see through her. Jie was completely terrified when he saw this. He was standing beside the men in black who had been with him. Now, he was the only one left alive out of the dozen of them. This little girl had killed someone right in front of him. His men did not even have time to raise their guns and counterattack before they were killed by her. Was she even human? For the first time, Jie felt fear from the bottom of his heart. Your turn. Yun Jian extended her butterfly knife and aimed it at Jie. The gun in Ming Jie's hand looked more convincing, while Yun Jian only had a butterfly knife in her hand. Gun and knife. Even an idiot would know who was faster. However, everyone was leaning towards Yun Jian's knife. Yun Jian's moves earlier made everyone feel that she would not lose. She would not lose either. The Inferno Ring has no grudge against you. Little girl, why do you want to kill me? Jie's hand holding the gun trembled slightly, but he still looked at Yun Jian as if he was trying to buy time so that he could live. No one wanted to die. If there was a chance to live, who would want to die? Grudge. Yun Jian flicked the butterfly knife lightly. Looking down at it, the scene of her brother being beheaded in her past life and his dried tears flashed in her mind. It was not that Yun Jian was unwilling to walk out of her past life, but her character's character. Her Xiao Yunju had been treated so cruelly. He was only 8 years of age. Although Yun Jian's head back, Yun Jian's hand, and on the other hand, Yun's of Yun Yun's, Yun's aunts. For example, Xiao Yunju never dared to sleep alone. When he wanted to sleep with her, he was dragged away by Ce. Ce treated Xiao Yunju well, so Xiao Yunju relied on him. To an 8-year-old boy, all of this was caused by Xiao Yunju's excess. Xiao Yunju was killed cruelly. It was not as if he did not have memories of his past life. How could the word grudge describe the trauma that followed him for life? The Inferno Ring and the Kosha mercenaries are irreconcilable enemies. I, the killing god, will destroy all of you even if I have to overturn everything. Yun Jian's gaze sharpened as she suddenly spoke. Kill. Jie gritted his teeth. Then he suddenly thought of something. Kill and kill? Jie was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he suddenly remembered Yun Jian's identity. He stared at Yun Jian with his eyes wide open. Chapter 539. Jie was dead. Everyone present was horrified, but they were even more horrified when they saw Yun Jian killing the armed criminals with a knife. Yun Jian had already walked forward to pick up her butterfly knife. She took out a tissue from her pocket and wiped it gently. Chu Ning and the others were much less shocked than Yu Luo and the rest. After all, Yun Jian had single-handedly annihilated an entire gang back then. It was comparable to what she was doing now. Moreover, it was a gang back then, so it was natural that they had guns and sticks. If Yun Jian could wipe out such a gang, what more now? Chu Ning stood up immediately when she saw that Yun Jian was fine. Ow, be gentle. At this moment, Chu Xiangnan, who had been comforting Chu Ning and holding her hand, was brought to his feet as well. Chu Xiangnan did not react in time and was pulled up by Chu Ning, so he howled. Why are you holding my hand? Shameless Chu Xiangnan, how dare you? Chu Ning only realized that Chu Xiangnan had been holding her hand earlier. Chu Ning jumped up and gave Chu Xiangnan a chestnut as she spoke. Chu Xiangnan howled again when Chu Ning knocked his head. It was a sense of relief after a disaster. Especially when the group of criminals were killing people wantonly just now and they were faced with gun after gun. Everyone present could have died at any time, but someone suddenly jumped out and saved them all. At this moment, everyone did not have to worry about being killed by the group of criminals just now. It was a sense of relief when one realized that they were still alive after a disaster. Those who had not experienced it would not understand it. Yun Jian, that's great, you're fine. Chu Ning jumped up and knocked Chu Xiangnan on the head before running to Yun Jian's side. Yun Jian's back was facing everyone. When she turned around after wiping her butterfly knife, her eyes were still frighteningly cold. Chu Ning trembled slightly, but she quickly calmed down. Yun Jian nodded at Chu Ning as she recollected her viciousness. Chu Xiangnan, Lu Shiyun, Jiang Weiwei, Fang Xiaoran, and the rest who stood up one after another, as well as Yu Luo and the rest who had yet to recover from their fear, stood up one after another. After Lu Shiyun, Jiang Weiwei, and the rest stood up, they followed Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan to Yun Jian. Hi Yun Jian, you were so cool just now. I admire you so much. Chu Xiangnan stood where he was and imitated Yun Jian's movements. He looked at Yun Jian with a grin, looking spirited. His face that could be considered handsome was instantly filled with pride. Yun Jian was a member of Team Monarch. By the way, Yun Jian, why was that guy so scared when he heard that your codename is Slashing God? Heh, has your Slashing God reputation spread so far and wide? After imitating Yun Jian's actions exaggeratedly, Chu Xiangnan looked at Yun Jian curiously and asked. Yun Jian glanced at Chu Xiangnan's comically handsome face. She suddenly had an illusion that Chu Xiangnan's comical face was not worthy of his handsome face. Take a guess. Yun Jian forced a smile and turned to walk out of the dojo. Is it because your Slashing God codename sounds better? That can't be right. My codename is Thunder. Thunder, thunder, thunder. No matter how it sounds cooler than yours. Ha. Chu Xiangnan praised himself for a while. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.